Chapter 12-18. Xiao Wanru and Chu Luchen didn't stay in Marquis Xing's mansion for a long time. After checking old Madame's condition and asking about the Imperial physician, they left Marquis Xing's mansion and went straight back to the mansion. At the gate, they met the carriage of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Judging from the style of the carriage, it was Chu Qing's carriage. Xiao Wanru slowly put down the curtain in her hand, leaned back silently, and fell into Chu Liuchen's arms. "What's wrong?" Chu Liuchen's voice was gentle. Although Xiao Wanru's expression was calm, he knew that she was not calm in her heart. "Old Madame suffered a stroke because of Xiao Jie'er's anger," Xiao Wanru said slowly. "This was the news that Nanny Yu found an opportunity to send to her just now." This was within his expectations, and it was also within reason. When she sent Xiao Jie to Marquis Xing's mansion, this matter was almost confirmed. "So what?" Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and said thoughtfully. "Don't you think it has something to do with me?" Xiao Wanru said gloomily, with an indescribable feeling. It was not because of old Madame's stroke. Old Madame suffered a stroke because she was angry at her. She had no affection for old Madame. With such a grandmother, she would rather not have such a grandmother. Old Madame of Marquis Xing's mansion is not only bad, but also vicious. It's best for such a person to end up like this. If I take action, she won't get off so easily. Chu Luchen snorted coldly, put his hands into his arms, and held Xiao Wanru's slender waist more tightly. If it weren't for Xiao Wanru, who had always said that she would do it herself, old Madame would have had an accident long ago, and she wouldn't have had the chance to stir up trouble in Marquis Xing's mansion. "She is my father's mother." Xiao Wanru's words sounded like a sigh, which was very light, so light that only she could hear it. Her father's mother was not her biological grandmother. That was all. Chu Luchen had been paying attention to her. When he heard what she said, his eyes turned cold and gloomy. She is partial to her second son and may even intervene in her second son's death. Even a vicious tiger will not eat its cubs. A person like her can't absolve her guilt even if she dies 10,000 times. Xiao Wanru opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she didn't know where to start. Her face was slightly pale. Her father and mother were the last things she wanted to mention. They were the things she cared about most in her second life. Leaning in Chu Liuchen's arms and feeling the temperature of his rising and falling chest, her irritated heart gradually calmed down. She slightly closed her eyes, and her long eyelashes fluttered a few times, which were as long as elegant fans, but also a little absent-minded. He understood how it felt to be betrayed by his own family. He reached out and gently patted Xiao Wanru's slender back. The doting feeling made Xiao Wanru calm down slowly. Old Madame, or at the very beginning, she had an extravagant dream. But as she got to know old Madame, she had no intention of marrying old Madame. She was more like a stranger than a stranger. They were even enemies. Xiao Wanru would never show mercy to her enemies. Although old Madame didn't necessarily know that Xiao Jing had harmed her father, she must have known something. In this case, she still protected Xiao Jing wholeheartedly and watched Madame of Duke Xing and Xiao Jing harm her, and how she didn't care about the so-called grandfather-granddaughter relationship at all. Although she was her father's biological mother, she had nothing to do with her. Her watery eyes under her long eyelashes were dark, as if they had attracted all the light. It was a burning hatred that could destroy this false kinship. Old Madame, Madame of Duke Xing, and Xiao Jing were the same. A debt of blood must be paid with blood. Xiao Wanru didn't know when she fell asleep. When she got out of the carriage, she was still in a daze. Chu Luchen carried her out of the carriage, and the servants on both sides lowered their heads. Since Princess Chen entered the mansion, Prince Cheng's style had changed. Facing an attic in Prince Chen's mansion, Prince Cheng frowned and watched Chu Luchen carry Xiao Wanru into the attic thoughtfully. Although his attic was higher than the ordinary ones, it was not the highest. It was nearer to some of the surrounding attics. The reason why it was clearer than other places was that it was closer to the front. "Your Highness, Prince Chen really treats my fifth sister very differently. Have you seen Prince Chen care so much about any woman before?" A sweet voice came from beside Prince Cheng. Xiao Yanru, who was dressed in a gorgeous light yellow coat, looked delicate and beautiful. The 8-piece dress made her slender waist look very slender. Prince Ching turned to look at her. She deserved to be called the first beauty, except for Princess Chen. Even if he didn't care much about women, he had to admit that Princess Chen was extremely beautiful and more natural and pure than Xiao Yanru. Fortunately, he didn't care about a woman's appearance. He reached out to pull Xiao Yanru into his arms, lowered his head, and looked at Xiao Yanru's face. His eyes were deep and he couldn't see any emotion, but the wrinkles in front of his eyebrows were a little less. Chu Luchen loves Xiao Wanru like a treasure? You can say that. Your Highness, I'm afraid that you don't know that Prince Chen has taken a fancy to my 5th sister for a long time, but she was still young at that time. I don't know what agreement Prince Chen and Great Elder Princess has with him. How could he be so devoted to my 5th sister? Xiao Yanru leaned on Prince Cheng and said softly. Prince Cheng took a step back, pushed Xiao Yanru away, and sat down on a chair beside him. I used to have such an idea. Is it because of and Great Elder Princess? It should be because of this. Of course, it is also because of my 5th sister. Prince Chen used to treat me well. Since my 5th sister recognized him, he no longer pretended to be nice to me. Xiao Yanru lowered her head and said with a slightly red face. It seemed that she was really embarrassed to tell him that Chu Luchen used to be interested in her. Prince Chen glanced at Xiao Yanru with an ambiguous look and said, Tell me about your relationship with Prince Zhou and Prince Yu. Can you still order them around now? Xiao Yanru's face turned slightly pale. Now that she was already Prince Cheng's woman, she didn't dare to have any other ideas. She hurriedly said, Your Highness, rest assured. I have nothing to do with them anymore. In fact, there was nothing between us in the past, but they treated me, well. As a subject's daughter, I dare not say or do anything more. They may have misunderstood something. She couldn't let Prince Cheng find out that she had an ambiguous relationship with Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou. Before she directly met Prince Cheng, Xiao Yanru didn't care about it, but now she didn't. I don't care about what happened in the past. You were still young at that time. In my eyes, you were just a child. I will dote on you in the future. Prince Cheng reached out to pull Xiao Yanru into his arms and said gently. Xiao Yanru's face turned a little better. She was afraid that Prince Cheng would ask her about her relationship with Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou at that time. Since Prince Cheng didn't investigate it, it would be the best. She took the initiative to lean against him and said, Your Highness, rest assured. I will only be your woman in the future and will only think of you. Find a way to send a message to Chu Liuzhou and Chu Luiyue and make them think that the throne will be passed on to Chu Luchen. Prince Cheng said non-committally. He was also annoyed now because he was involved in Xiao Jing's affairs. Xiao Jing was also useless. He couldn't even deal with the Jiang family, which caused his men to be exposed and got involved with Chu Qing. He was in a mess here. He was afraid that the matter of the minor official would be found out. Although he might not be found out, it would make his brother more suspicious of him. Prince Cheng felt a headache because of this. He just wanted to be a hidden king, so he didn't come to the front of the stage directly. If he needed to appear in front of everyone, he had to make Chu Luiyue, Chu Liuzhou and others all get into trouble. His brother had no other choice and the throne would be his. Xiao Yanru clenched her hands and subconsciously pulled Prince Cheng's clothes, saying, Your Highness. Prince Zhou, Prince Yu and I. She wanted to say that Chu Liuzhou and Chu Luiyue were not very close to her, but when she saw Prince Cheng's cold eyes, she swallowed her words. It didn't mean that she didn't know anything. Her father said that if she didn't perform well, she would have nothing to do when Prince Cheng ascended the throne in the future. Your Highness, don't worry. I will find a way to send a message. Xiao Yanru said softly. She took the initiative to stick close to Prince Cheng, and her towering chest pressed against Prince Cheng's firm chest. How could Prince Cheng not understand such a lively beauty who took the initiative to flirt with him in both words and behavior? He reached out his hand and slid it under his clothes, saying, Go and meet them. Xiao Yanru blushed and almost didn't hear what he said. She said with her watery eyes and charming charm, Your Highness, go and meet them. I won't care about it. Let them know that you still care about them. Of course, I will also send such a good news to them. Prince Cheng said with a smile and moved his hands slightly, which made Xiao Yanru exclaim. She felt hot all over and looked at Prince Cheng affectionately. Her eyes were so soft that tears almost flowed out. Prince Cheng laughed, carried her to the bed behind the screen, and threw Xiao Yanru on the bed. The clothes on the bed were in a mess. After a long while, the movement on the bed disappeared. Prince Cheng stood up, slightly tidied up his clothes, and said casually, "I will come to see you later. You can hide here first. No one will think that you are hiding near Prince Chen's mansion." "Your Highness." Xiao Yanru looked up at Prince Cheng, only to see that he had pushed the door open and gone out. She bit her lip and clenched her hands with hatred. She was the daughter of the lineal wife of Marquis Xing, not a prostitute, but Prince Cheng treated her so casually. "Xiao Wanru, it was all because of this bitch?" Prince Cheng went downstairs and carefully washed his hands in the basin handed over by Shilu. He washed his hands very carefully, as if he was washing something very dirty. His eyes were lowered, and his face could not be seen clearly. "Your Highness, you'd better go back and wash your hands." Sheila looked at the attic above and couldn't help reminding him. Chapter 12:19. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Chu Qing came back from Marquis Xing's mansion in a hurry and went directly to Old Princess's courtyard as soon as possible. After sitting down, he picked up the warm water on the table, drank half a cup at once, and then put it down heavily. "How is it?" Old Princess asked. There was no one else in the room except Old Princess and her son. "This bitch doesn't want to come back. She said that she wanted to accompany old Madam of Marquis Xing and had a stroke." Chu Qing said angrily. He did not expect that Xiao Jie would stay in Marquis Xing's mansion so decisively. Something happened to old Madam of Marquis Xing's mansion, which made it reasonable for her to stay there. If he insisted on letting her come back, it would be a little too much. "I told you at the beginning that Xiao Jie was not a good person, but later you were bewitched by her and actually thought that she was good. Look, such a thing happened, and it must be her who secretly spread the news. I heard that she and Lord Wen, who came to the mansion that day, grew up together and were childhood sweethearts." Old Princess sneered. Without outsiders present, her indifference all disappeared, and she became much sharper. With a pair of long and narrow eyes, she looked a little more sinister than Chu Qing. She did not look like a woman who cultivated peacefully in the Buddha Hall at all. "Mother, it's useless to say this now," Chu Qing said impatiently. If he had known that Xiao Jie might have done something bad, he would have killed her at that time to avoid so many accidents. Not long after Xiao Jie left, the officials of the Ministry of Justice came to the mansion to check again and came back. Although he was unhappy, he could do nothing but watch the body of the petty official being found out from his mother's Buddha Hall. A petty official of the Ministry of Justice was dead. This petty official was also related to the death of Madam of Marquis Xing. Later, the officials of the Ministry of Justice also found that this petty official might have entered Madam of Marquis Xing's room at that time, which meant that if Madam of Marquis Xing did not commit suicide, she might have been killed by this petty official. In the end, this petty official even appeared in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. With so many things mixed together, Chu Qing felt a headache coming on. He just wanted to get to the bottom of things. When he found the petty official, the black-clothed men had just retreated. Someone had found the petty official and thought that he was one of the black-clothed men. After interrogating him, he found out that the petty official didn't know anything. He was knocked unconscious on his way back to the mansion and sent to him. After understanding this, Chu Qing's mind was only filled with the word, set up. Someone had set him up. He had severely punished the low-ranking official and learned Xiao Jing's name from him. He knew that it was Xiao Jing who had asked someone to send him a message to attack the Jiang family and made it seem that the Jiang family had killed herself by hitting the wall. Then he vaguely mentioned a person. Others might not know this person, but Chu Qing did. This person seemed to be Prince Cheng's man. That was to say, Prince Cheng had a connection with Xiao Jing. He had even helped Xiao Jing deal with the Jiang family, who was in his way. The relationship between them was even more unusual. During the punishment, he accidentally killed a petty official. Chu Qing had thought that he would find a way to get rid of the petty official after the matter had passed. Unexpectedly, the Ministry of Justice had found him. If his mother hadn't put the blame on the assassin in the end and said that the Ministry of Justice was the mysterious black-clothed assassin who wanted to assassinate them and their son, they wouldn't have been able to get away at that time. Even so, the entire Commandery Prince Qing's mansion was now under surveillance. Someone must have told the Ministry of Justice what had happened to the petty official. Otherwise, it was impossible for them to come back after searching again and finally find him. Old Princess and Chu Qing had investigated and found Xiao Jie, the most suspicious person. However, Xiao Jie had returned to Marquis Xing's mansion. Chu Qing immediately took someone to Marquis Xing's mansion. He said that he was going to invite Xiao Jie, but in fact he was going to catch Xiao Jie and bring her back. Unexpectedly, Xiao Jie had been prepared. Something happened in Marquis Xing's mansion. It was said that old Madame of Marquis Xing had a stroke and Xiao Jie stayed to take care of her seriously ill grandmother. At this time, it was no longer a suspicion but a certainty. Xiao Jie was the person who had tipped off when Shichi. "Mother, what should we do? Will this bitch know other things in our mansion? If others know, it will be bad." Chu Qing said coldly. If he saw Xiao Jie at this time, he would definitely kill her with a knife. "I don't think so. I have been keeping a close eye on her in the past and usually don't let her get close to me. When something happens, I ask her to go back. At most, she knows that I don't like her. It's impossible for her to know other things." Old Princess shook her head. Under the lamp, her face looked gloomy, but there was some strange color in it from time to time. "Will the Ministry of Justice believe what you said?" Chu Qing thought for a while and said, although when Shichi of the Ministry of Justice had left, he was still worried and felt that this matter would not be so easy to solve. "I will go to the palace to see the Empress Dowager tomorrow." Old Princess gritted her teeth and said, when Shichi was really difficult to deal with. He was so stubborn. It seemed that he would not let go of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion so easily. "Mother, are you going to the palace tomorrow?" Chu Qing exclaimed. He knew that his mother was most unwilling to go to the palace. "Yes, I have to go to the palace to see the Empress Dowager. I heard that the Empress Dowager is ill." Old Princess gritted her teeth and said, when she left the palace, she had made up her mind that she would definitely come back. When she came back, she had been looked down upon by others. When she came back, she must ask someone to carry her sedan into the palace from the main gate. But now it was not the right time. She would not just talk about these personal disputes. Otherwise, her son would not have been in trouble at that time. "Mother, be careful tomorrow," Chu Qing said worriedly. "Don't worry. We have people in the palace." Old Princess smiled coldly and slightly raised the corners of her mouth. The meaning of mockery was obvious. In the end, Old Princess of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion did not enter the palace the next day because the Empress Dowager went to Huaguang Temple to worship Buddha. Xiao Wanru accompanied the Empress Dowager. In addition to the Empress Dowager and the Empress, Xiao Wanru, Princess Qin, came next. There were not many people, but all of them were noble. Except for Xiao Wanru, Princess Qin, who was inconspicuous. When they arrived at Huaguang Temple, Xiao Wanru accompanied the Empress Dowager and the Empress for a chat. Since the previous incident, the Empress's attitude had become much kinder. When she saw Xiao Wanru, she also smiled as if the two of them had always been on good terms. She flattered the Empress Dowager and made the Empress Dowager laugh from time to time. The atmosphere was very harmonious. After talking for a while, the Empress Dowager was a little tired. She asked the Empress and Xiao Wanru to enjoy the scenery by themselves and didn't need to stay here. Nanny Wei also repeatedly promised that she would keep an eye on the Empress Dowager. The Empress and Xiao Wanru came out of the courtyard and said, "Princess Qin, if you are tired, go to have a rest." "Thank you, Empress." Seeing that the Empress didn't want her to accompany her, Xiao Wanru said goodbye with a smile. She didn't want to accompany the Empress. It was best for them to enjoy the scenery separately. The Empress nodded and watched Xiao Wanru leave silently. The smile on her face slowly faded. "Your Highness, let's go over there to enjoy the scenery. I heard that the purple bamboos in Huaguang Temple are good. It's rare for you to go out of the palace, so you should relax." The palace maid who came to serve the empress said softly. The empress turned around and asked in a low voice, "Is Prince Zhou here?" The palace maid's voice became lower and lower, and only the empress, who was close to her, could hear it clearly. Hearing that her son had come, the empress took a deep breath. During this period of time, she had been imprisoned in her palace, and it was not easy for her to meet her son. This time, she tried to get the Empress Dowager's permission to go out. She had something to discuss with her son, which couldn't be known by others. Did anyone find out? Don't worry, Your Highness. Prince Zhou is very careful. He just pretends to be an ordinary noble young master and doesn't come in with his real identity, the palace maid said. The empress nodded and was quite satisfied with Chu Liuzhou. Although she was locked up, her son did a good job. Compared with the time when she was in front of him, he was much more sensible and sensible. Xiao Wanru didn't expect to meet Madam of the Prime Minister and Gu Shishu here. The banquet that was to be held by the Prime Minister's mansion was postponed because of the Jiang family's funeral. Marquis Xing's mansion and the Prime Minister's mansion were together. One had to hold a funeral because of the death, while the other was busy choosing a daughter-in-law. This was really unreasonable and weird. After thinking about it, Madam of the Prime Minister finally postponed the banquet so that it didn't meet the Jiang family's funeral. Who is this? Seeing Xiao Wanru coming from a distance, Madam of the Prime Minister asked Gu Shishu, who was supporting her, who didn't look like a member of an ordinary family. Her appearance could be said to be exceedingly beautiful. Her son would definitely like her. In order to let her youngest son get married, Madam of the Prime Minister also took great pains to find a daughter-in-law for him. However, her youngest son didn't care about her at all. Madam of the Prime Minister was so anxious that she had blisters in her mouth. If it was the girl in front of her, her son should be willing to marry her, right? She had never seen such a beautiful miss from an aristocratic family. And she is not. She is Princess Chen. Seeing the amazement and desire in Madam of the Prime Minister's eyes, Gu Shishu knew what she meant. She gritted her teeth and hated her aunt. She was the closest person to her aunt, but her aunt couldn't see her. Is she Princess Chen? Madam of the Prime Minister stopped. She didn't know her before, so it didn't matter whether she greeted her or not. Now that she knew her, of course, she had to greet her. When the Prime Minister returned to the mansion, he had told her in private about Prince Chen, so she paid special attention to the princess of Prince Chen's mansion. Xiao Wanru also saw Madam of the Prime Minister. She originally wanted to leave because she didn't want to see Madam of the Prime Minister. However, since Madam of the Prime Minister stopped, it was inconvenient for her to leave. She took a few steps forward and looked at Madam of the Prime Minister opposite her gracefully. In the last life, they were mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, but in this life, they were like strangers. There were not many things in the world that could be traced. She could only thank God again for giving her a rebirth. Chapter 12:20. Greetings, Princess Chen. Madam Wen said with a smile. Madam Wen, you're welcome. Xiao Wanru raised her hand slightly with an extraordinary bearing. Princess Chen, do you happen to come to Huaguang Temple today? Madam Wen asked with a smile. I came with Imperial Grandmother and the Empress, Xiao Wanru said. The Empress Dowager didn't want to alarm others, so she didn't make it public this time. Except for a few people, no one else knew it. Empress Dowager is also here. Where is she now? Madam Wen asked. Since the Empress Dowager was here, she certainly had to visit her. Imperial Grandmother just went to bed. She may not have the energy to see you at this time, Xiao Wanru reminded her with a smile. Then I'll go to see the Empress Dowager and the Empress later. Madam of the Prime Minister nodded with a smile and looked at Xiao Wanru kindly. Princess Chen was a kind and nice person. She had such a beautiful face and was not arrogant at all. She seemed to be a good person. She suddenly remembered that Gu Shishu had once said that Princess Chen was arrogant. Now she didn't seem to be arrogant at all. Princess Chen, I happened to have something to do that day, so the banquet was postponed. Please come to our mansion with Miss Qin in a few days, Madam Wen said. Madam Wen Xiang said. Although the invitation had been sent again and everyone knew this logic, saying it again would make it seem more polite. Of course, The most important person was Miss Qin, a member of Concubine Lan's family. It was said that the emperor only went to Concubine Lan's palace recently. It could be seen that Concubine Lan treated the emperor differently. Her niece was also the niece of the former empress, so Madame Wen didn't originally consider it. If the former emperor and empress mentioned it again, the emperor would definitely be unhappy. But now that Concubine Lan could be favored again, it meant that the emperor didn't care. If Miss Qin could be her daughter-in-law, it would also benefit her mansion a lot. One of her two aunts was the beautiful former empress, and the other was the current favored Concubine Lan. Although she had never seen Miss Qin before, she must be good-looking. The more Madame Wen thought about it, the more satisfied she was. As for Princess Qin, it was normal for her to invite her in person. Miss Qin now lived in Prince Chen's mansion. If someone followed her when she went out, Princess Qin was the most suitable person. "Thank you, Madame Wen Xiang," Xiao Wanru said lightly, pointed to a Buddha hall in front, and said, "I'm going to ask for a divination stick for Imperial grandmother, so I can't accompany you." "Princess, please help yourself." Madame Wen retreated to the side with a smile and gave way. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and walked over slowly with the maid behind her. She didn't look at Gu Shishu from beginning to end, as if she was just an ordinary maid. Sensing Xiao Wanru's contempt, Gu Shishu was so angry that her face turned pale. She held Madame of the Prime Minister's hand tightly and pursed her lips tightly. Anyone could see that she was unhappy. The Prime Minister's wife looked at her expression and then at the direction she was glaring at. She sighed in her heart. This niece of hers used to be pretty good, but now she was getting worse. Not only was she misbehaving, she was also narrow-minded. Even if she was to be matched with her second son, she was not very willing. Speaking of this matter, Madame of the Prime Minister was also full of anger. Under the hint of her youngest son, she could also see that Gu Shishu had known that Gu Shishu wanted to marry her youngest son, but she had an ambiguous relationship with her second son. In this case, Madame of the Prime Minister asked Gu Shishu to marry her second son for the sake of the relationship between the two families and the fact that Gu Shishu had been raised by her since she was a child. Now she actually dared to covet her youngest son. Didn't she see whether her appearance and behavior were worthy of her youngest son? "Sister Shishu, it's time for you to marry Xian. It's not good to keep delaying it like this," Madame of the Prime Minister said as she walked forward. "Aunt." Gu Shishu interrupted her with a shy face. "How can you say such things to me? You can mention these words to father and mother." In the past, if she had said so, Madame of the Prime Minister might have thought that she was really embarrassed. Her youngest son was a girl, and when it came to this kind of thing, all of them would blush. But since being reminded by her youngest son, what she saw and heard made her change her mind about Gu Shishu and calm down a lot. "You and Xian are in love with each other. Aunt watched you grow up. What's there to be embarrassed about?" Madame of the Prime Minister said gently. She did not give up talking this time because of Gu Shishu's interruption. Gu Shishu stole a glance at Madame of the Prime Minister's expression. Seeing that Madame of the Prime Minister's expression was still calm, Gu Shishu breathed a sigh of relief and felt a burst of irritation in her heart. She wanted to marry third cousin. She must marry third cousin. Originally, Nyang had helped her make a plan. After solving second cousin's problem, she might marry third cousin. But why didn't Aunt treat her like before? She seemed to be a little distant. What was his aunt up to this time? Thinking of Nyang, she couldn't help but think of Nyang's problem. This was a thing that she helped Nyang with after Nyang helped her think of an idea. Gu Shishu originally wanted to thank Nyang, but now she failed to do her own thing. After thinking of Nyang's problem, she felt a little annoyed. At first, she promised to bring Nyang to others and introduce her to other misses or madams of aristocratic families. Aunt held a banquet. Although it was a miss who was invited, everyone knew that it was to see each other. Not only misses but also madams of the mansion would come. Gu Shishu could report that Nyang could show up at this time. She would not forget that she had promised Xiao Hua in this thing. And what she and Nyang said was really a good idea. But things never kept up with changes. The Madam of Jiang died, and the original banquet was cancelled. They could only set another day. These days, Yin Yang came to urge her almost every day and wanted to give her a chance to show up in front of everyone. This time, Madam of the Prime Minister came to Huaguang Temple. Because of this, Gu Shishu deliberately said something in front of Madam of the Prime Minister. Aunt. Gu Shishu wanted to say something but stopped. She looked at Madam of the Prime Minister with a little timidity, as if she was still the child who was sent to the mansion. What's wrong? Madam of the Prime Minister's voice softened unconsciously. Although what Gu Shishu did at the moment made her dissatisfied, she raised her like a daughter after all. So, she couldn't be cruel to her. Aunt Lu will also go up the mountain today. I will ask her to visit you later. When she came to see me before, she said so. But you are busy every time, so I haven't seen you until now. It's better not to see her. I don't know her. Madam of the Prime Minister refused. Aunt Lu's life is also very pitiful. Gu Shishu persuaded again. How do you know she is pitiful? Madam of the Prime Minister glanced at her and frowned secretly. When had Gu Shishu been so enthusiastic? She was too enthusiastic, which made Madam of the Prime Minister suspicious. Everyone said so. Gu Shishu pinched the handkerchief and lowered her head. Is that what everyone is saying? Who said so? Madam of the Prime Minister wanted to get to the bottom of it. And isn't everyone talking about it? She is really a very good person, but her situation is also very pitiful. Gu Shishu murmured. The so-called, everyone said so, was of course only her. You'd better stay out of her business. Madam of the Prime Minister said coldly. Madam of the Prime Minister specially told her not to intervene in the business of Lu Nyang. What Xiao Jing, Marquis Xing, did was increasingly displeasing. At first glance, Lu Nyang was not a good person. Although Madam of the Prime Minister had not seen this woman called Lu Nyang, she had sent her trusted subordinates to see her, and they all said that she was not a simple woman. Now there was nothing good in Marquis Xing's mansion, so it was impossible for anything good to happen if she got involved with them. Stay away from her in the future. You are an unmarried Mississippi. If you follow her like this, your reputation will be tarnished in the future. Madam of the Prime Minister said again. Yes, Aunt. Gu Shishu knew that since Madam of the Prime Minister said so, she could not do anything to Lu Nyang. She bit her lip and was secretly angry. Of course, she did not want to intervene in it, but she had to. Xiao Huan had something on her. If she did not help Lu Nyang, her past would be exposed. Originally, only Xiao Yanru knew about it. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yanru, who was dead, actually sent this information to Xiao Huan. How dare she resist? In any case, she had to help Lu Nyang appear in front of everyone, and she had to do it above board. A trace of malice flashed across her eyes. Since her aunt did not care about the old relationship, she could not blame her. It was Lu Nyang who came up with the idea. She told her what she should do if Madam of the Prime Minister insisted on stopping her. She had thought that it was useless before, but now she felt that it was really useful. Then she would follow Lu Nyang's idea. It was all her aunt's fault. She could not be blamed. Xiao Wanru wandered outside for a while. Only Yu Jie and Qing followed her, so she was very leisurely. Calculating the time, she walked back slowly when it was almost lunchtime. She walked around the purple bamboo forest and looked at the steel forest inside. In fact, she was not very hungry, so she was not in a hurry. This time, she accompanied the Empress Dowager to offer incense. Because they came here in private, there was no ostentatious scene. Moreover, they could stay on the mountain for a night, so they were very comfortable. The Empress Dowager's courtyard was in the middle. One of the courtyards belonged to Xiao Wanru, and the other belonged to the Empress. If Xiao Wanru wanted to have lunch, she could go back to her courtyard. The Empress Dowager had told them before that they did not need to follow her. As for the Empress, it seemed that she would not be willing to have lunch with Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru happened to think so. They did not use the courtyards left by the royal family. The courtyards they came from were basically those for distinguished guests in ordinary incense rooms, which were both elegant and inconspicuous. As they were walking, they suddenly saw an old maid coming out of a path in a hurry. Because she walked in a hurry, she almost bumped into Xiao Wanru. After withdrawing her foot, She fell heavily to the ground and covered her foot in pain. It seemed that she was injured. Chapter 12:21. Who are you? Qing stepped forward and stood in front of Xiao Wanru to protect her. Master specially ordered me to protect the princess. There were many things happening recently, so I was afraid that my master would get into trouble. My madam fell and fainted. The old maid panicked and said hurriedly. She held her leg and couldn't get up for a while. Your madam? Xiao Wanru rolled her watery eyes slightly. This old maid seemed to be standing behind Madam of the Prime Minister just now. My madam is Madam of the Prime Minister. She fell when walking just now and is going to the foot of the mountain to find a doctor. The old maid finally recovered and stood up with the help of the tree beside her. She recognized that it was Princess Qin in front of her just now, so she turned in another direction. Unexpectedly, her feet gave way and she fell. Madam of the Prime Minister fell? How is she? Xiao Wanru glanced at the old maid and asked. My madam fell and fainted. Cousin Miss is serving my madam. The old maid was so anxious that her forehead was covered with sweat. Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said, It's too late to go down the mountain at this time. I'll find an imperial physician to check on your madam later. If she hadn't seen it, Xiao Wanru wouldn't have intervened. Now that she had seen it, she had to do it for the sake of Wenqiqi. There were 2 imperial physicians serving the Empress Dowager. After sending Yu Jie to the Empress Dowager's courtyard with the old maid to find an imperial physician, Xiao Wanru stood still and didn't continue to move forward. Your Highness. Seeing that she had been standing there, Qing looked at a mountain in the distance and asked with concern in silence. I'm fine. Let's go. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly with a faint smile in her watery eyes. With a sweet smile on her lips, she moved her feet and walked slowly. Just now, she suddenly thought of Madam of the Prime Minister and herself in the last life. The Empress Dowager had gotten up, but the Empress was not there. Hearing that Madam of the Prime Minister fell and fainted, the Empress Dowager asked Xiao Wanru to go over and have a look. The Prime Minister's identity was not ordinary, and the Empress Dowager had always thought highly of Madam of the Prime Minister. Since the Empress Dowager had instructed, Xiao Wanru didn't stay. It was a little early for lunch at this time, and she didn't feel hungry at this time, so she went to Madam of the Prime Minister's courtyard. Coincidentally, the 2 places were not far apart. My mother is also here? Yu Jie, who had come back and accompanied Xiao Wanru, reported as she walked. Yes, she's so busy. If I didn't know her, I would have thought she was from the Prime Minister's mansion. Yu Jie curled her lips and said, Then let's walk slower. Xiao Wanru stopped. Princess, what's the matter? Qing was sensitive and asked subconsciously. It's not a big deal. We are not doctors. The imperial physician has already gone there. It's time to treat the symptoms. It doesn't matter if we go earlier or later. Xiao Wanru raised her long eyelashes and said disapprovingly. Of course, the 2 maids would obey their master's orders. The group of people walked very slowly. When they arrived at the door of Madam of the Prime Minister's residence, Xiao Wanru happened to see the imperial physician coming out, so she stopped. Greetings, Princess Qin. The imperial physician stepped forward and bowed. How is Minister Wen's wife? Xiao Wanru asked. A maid sent the imperial physician out. When he saw Xiao Wanru, he hurriedly bowed and went back into the courtyard to report. Minister Wen's wife missed her step and fell down. She is still in a coma now. Fortunately, someone helped to treat her injury and kept her alive with century-old ginseng. Otherwise, she would have been in big trouble this time, the imperial physician said. Almost had a big trouble? Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows. Almost had a big trouble. The imperial physician nodded. The so-called big trouble was a matter of life and death. In other words, Minister Wen's wife almost died. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice, like 2 fluttering butterflies. She just fell down. How could she be so serious? Xiao Wanru asked. Maybe it was an accident. Now she is fine. She just needs to have a good rest, the imperial physician said. Xiao Wanru nodded and walked to the gate of the courtyard. Gu Shishu had come out in a hurry. When she saw Xiao Wanru, she hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, Princess Qin. How is Minister Wen's wife?" Xiao Wanru asked again. "Andy is fine now. Fortunately, the Imperial physician is here." Gu Shishu looked pale with lingering fear. It could be seen that she was badly frightened. "It's good that nothing serious happened," Xiao Wanru said gently. "Can I go to see Minister Wen's wife now?" Gu Shishu hesitated for a moment and said hesitantly, "Please forgive me, Princess Qin. I'm afraid Auntie can't see you in her current situation." Of course, she didn't want Xiao Wanru to go in. "Okay then." Xiao Wanru didn't insist on going in. She nodded and said, "I'll go back first. If you need an Imperial physician, come straight to me." "Thank you, Princess Qin." Gu Shishu didn't expect Xiao Wanru to be so easy to get rid of. She breathed a sigh of relief and agreed with a smile. Seeing Xiao Wanru leave, she hurriedly returned to the main room. Anyang was still serving Minister Wen's wife in the main room. It was an inner room. Hearing the sound at the door, she looked over and was relieved when she saw that only Gu Shishu was there. "Didn't you come in?" "She didn't come in. Auntie is still unconscious at this time. It's useless to come in." Gu Shishu raised the corner of her mouth indifferently and said in a low voice. She was very proud that Xiao Wanru was so easy to get rid of. "It's good that she didn't come." Anyang nodded. Since she heard that Princess Qin was also there, she had been worried. She wanted to stay, but she didn't want to bump into Princess Qin. The best way was to ask Gu Shishu to block Princess Qin in front of the courtyard. Now it was just the right time. Gu Shishu's eyes fell on Minister Wen's wife, who was lying on the bed. Minister Wen's wife, whose forehead was wrapped with a heavy scarf, looked as pale as snow. There were faint bloodstains on the white scarf. Gu Shishu couldn't help but worry, "Is my aunt really okay?" "Don't worry. She'll be fine." Anyang comforted her, but she felt funny in her heart. It was Gu Shishu who did it. She was obviously an extremely cruel person, but she showed such a panicked and scared look. Who was she playing for? Gu Shishu was almost raised by Minister Wen's wife. Anyang originally thought that she had to persuade Gu Shishu again before she would do it. Today was the first day they went up the mountain, and there were still a few days to persuade Gu Shishu. Unexpectedly, in such a short time, there was news that Gu Shishu did it, so she didn't have to persuade her. She was someone who could be ruthless, yet she revealed such a weak and helpless expression, which made people feel sick of her. Will she really be fine? My aunt is so old." Gu Shishu cried and wiped her tears with a handkerchief. It's okay. Minister Wen's wife will be fine." Anyang comforted her in a soft voice. One was worried, while the other was comforting as if they were really worried. The people around Minister Wen's wife came in. Seeing their expressions, they all felt that they were really worried. When Minister Wen's wife woke up in the afternoon, Anyang and Gu Shishu were guarding by her bed. Both of them looked very tired. Before they spoke, the servant girls and old maids who had seen it told Minister Wen's wife clearly what had happened. They especially said that the situation was critical at that time, and it was Anyang who took out ginseng to save Minister Wen's life, so that Minister Wen's wife was out of danger. Later, when Gu Shishu was at a loss, it was also her mother who helped her to invite an Imperial physician. "Thank you." Minister Wen's eyes fell on Anyang's face, and she said reluctantly, "Aunt, don't say that." "Auntie, don't say that. I will thank Aunt Lu. Have a good rest. Just now you fell like that? I was almost scared to death. If something really happened to you, how could I live? How could I explain it to my cousin? I might as well go with you." Gu Shishu came over with a bowl of medicine. Her eyes were red. When she saw Minister Wen's wife's appearance, she couldn't help crying again. "Good girl, I scared you." Minister Wen's wife said slowly and reached out to hold Gu Shishu's hand. She felt warm in her heart. After all, Gu Shishu was raised by herself. Although her character was a little bad, she was sincere and filial to her. "Aunt." Gu Shishu took Minister Wen's wife's hand and sat on the bed. She wiped her tears with a handkerchief and showed a smile on her face. However, this smile looked more pitiful at this time. "Take the medicine first." We can talk about other things later. As long as you get better, I can do anything. As she said, she tried the medicine herself. The taste of the medicine was very bitter and pungent, but she took it with a smile. Minister Wen's wife was moved again. This girl didn't like to drink medicine since she was a child. Every time she asked her to drink medicine, she would persuade and cheat her. How could she be so filial and even try medicine for her? And it's not hot. It's just right for you to drink. Drink it first. I will ask someone to prepare honey for you. Gu Shishu put a spoon of medicine to Minister Wen's wife's mouth. Minister Wen's wife nodded and drank it. Gu Shishu fed Minister Wen's wife very slowly and carefully. When she finished, she handed the bowl to the servant girl on the side and gently wiped the medicine on Minister Wen's wife's lips with a handkerchief. Shishu's attentive and considerate look made the Prime Minister's madam feel distressed. She had wronged this child before. This child was a kind person, so how could he have so many tricks up his sleeves? After all, Shichi was a man who didn't know much about girls' affairs, so he misunderstood Shishu. Minister Wen's wife, since you are all right, I will go back first. I originally made an appointment to worship incense with Miss Gu. And Yang took 2 steps forward and said goodbye to Minister Wen's wife. At this time, how could Minister Wen's wife let her go back like this? She hadn't thanked her properly, so she stopped her with a smile. Since you are here, you can walk around with Shishu. I am not in good health and need to rest. Shishu is alone. Aunt, I won't go anywhere. I will accompany you here. Wherever you are, I will be there. Gu Shishu said eagerly. Looking at her anxious look with a hint of admiration, the Prime Minister's wife enjoyed it more and more. She didn't want to make her feel wronged. She smiled and took her hand, patted it and said, "Good child, I'm fine. I just need to take care of myself. Go out and pray to the Buddha. Also, help me pay my vows. Coincidentally, Anyang is here. Let her accompany you." Offering incense and returning the vow was a big thing. Even if they were sick, many people still dragged their sick bodies to come. Since Minister Wen's wife said so, Gu Shishu couldn't refuse anymore. Then, in Minister Wen's wife's expectation, she pulled Anyang and let her stay in this yard. Chapter 12:22. After Wen Shichi got the news, he rushed to Huaguang Temple while sending a message to Wen Shichi. He came on horseback very fast, but someone was faster than him. Especially when he saw that only a small part of the road was left, Wen Shichi had to rein the horse. Prince Chen's carriage was almost twice as wide as an ordinary carriage. Prince Chen leisurely reclined in the carriage, and the carriage was not slow. But even so, Wen Shichi was still anxious and followed behind. He really couldn't wait, so he had to take a few steps forward and catch up with the guards behind the carriage. He cupped his hands to the guard and said, "Your Highness, please report that Wen Shichi wants to see you." Wen Shichi's strength was extraordinary, and his father was the Prime Minister. The guard did not dare to neglect him and immediately went to report. After a while, he came out and cupped his hands to Wen Shichi and said, "Lord Wen, our prince wants to see you." Wen Shichi jumped off the horse. After throwing the reins to the servant, he strode to the carriage and cupped his hands to Chu Luchin in the carriage. The curtain was lifted. Chu Luchin narrowed his eyes and asked lazily, "What's the matter, third young master Wen?" "Something happened to my mother in the temple on the mountain. I want to go up the mountain to see her as soon as possible," Wen Shichi said with a serious face. "Something happened to Madam Wen?" Chu Luchin frowned slightly and said, "Do I need to call an imperial physician? I happen to bring one here." "Thank you, Your Highness, but I don't need it for the time being. Can I go first?" Wen Shichi said. "It doesn't matter. Lord Wen, please go first." Chu Luchin was very easy to talk to. After giving the order, the carriage stopped for a while. Wen Shichi thanked Chu Luchin again, turned over and mounted the horse to go up the mountain. Was Prince Chen really as special as his father said? Wen Shichi was surprised that Prince Chen was so easy to talk to. He pursed his thin lips to hide the darkness at the bottom of his eyes. He took a deep breath and suppressed the unwillingness in his heart. After he left, Chu Luchin ordered the carriage to go up the mountain again and let it speed up. Wen Shichi whipped his horse up the mountain and hurried to Madam of the Prime Minister's residence. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Gu Shishu rushing out in tears. He dodged to the side and avoided her. Gu Shishu stood unsteadily and almost fell. The servant girl standing behind her was smart and hurried forward to pull her up. The two of them swayed, but fortunately, they stood firm. Third cousin, it's my fault. I wanted to come up the mountain to offer incense, but I caused such a big thing to happen to Aunt. Third cousin, please punish me. Gu Shishu cried like a pear blossom in the rain. Her clothes seemed to be a little messy, and a few strands of hair fell down. Inexplicably, Ding Ning felt that this kind of messiness was a little delicate, which made Gu Shishu look more beautiful than before. What about my mother? When Shichi's gaze did not fall on Gu Shishu at all. Of course, he would not see her carefully dressed, beautiful appearance. He walked in with big strides. Third cousin. Gu Shishu hurriedly chased after him and almost fell in a hurry. Finally, she followed Wen Shichi in and saw her mother saluting Wen Shichi. Third cousin, this is... Gu Shishu still wanted to introduce Wen Shichi to her mother, but she saw Wen Shichi go in like a gust of wind, ignoring her standing at the door. Her mother raised her head and signaled to Gu Shishu. Gu Shishu hurriedly chased after him. Seeing Madam of the Prime Minister lying on the bed, Wen Shichi's face changed dramatically. He took 2 steps forward and reached out to put his hand on Madam of the Prime Minister's arm. Shichi is here. I'm fine. Hearing the voice, Madam of the Prime Minister opened her eyes and said softly, Mother, let me feel your pulse. When Shichi stretched out his hand. Although his medical skills were not good, he still knew some basic pulse feeling. I'm really fine. Fortunately, Shishu and her mother are here today. You should thank them later, Madam of the Prime Minister said weakly. When Shichi's hand fell from Madam of the Prime Minister's wrist, and his handsome eyebrows slightly relaxed. His mother's injury had basically stabilized. Third cousin, it's all because Aunt Lu sent a ginseng. Otherwise, it would have been a big deal. The Imperial physician said that we were very lucky. Gu Shishu had already come in. At this time, she said softly. Holding the handkerchief in her hand, she lowered her head and blamed herself. It's all my fault that I didn't take good care of Aunt. Otherwise, such a thing wouldn't have happened to Aunt. How can it be your fault? Who knew that I would step on nothing? It's my own carelessness. It's not your fault. Madam of the Prime Minister comforted her. Gu Shishu's eyes turned red again. It's me, what the hell is going on? When Shichi impatiently interrupted Gu Shishu and his eyes fell on the woman who followed Gu Shishu in. When she was at the door of the mistress's room just now, she saluted to him. Is this Xiao Jing's mistress? It is said that she is the daughter of the former imperial censor who was lost in the capital? Being interrupted by Wen Shichi, Gu Shishu panicked for a moment and looked at Madam of the Prime Minister pitifully. Aunt, third cousin, Shichi, fortunately, it's Shishu and Enyang today. Don't scare them. They are both timid. Madam of the Prime Minister defended them at first sight. Where did you get the ginseng? When Shichi looked at Enyang without blinking. After looking her up and down for a long time, he suddenly said, It's mine. Enyang had to answer. Third cousin? Gu Shishu wanted to continue but was interrupted by Wen Shichi rudely. Cousin, I have to figure out the cause and effect of this matter. Why do you keep hindering me from asking questions? His words made Gu Shishu speechless. She could only lower her head and clench the handkerchief in her hand with a guilty conscience. Third cousin is so smart. Will he see something? Why didn't second cousin come today? If it was second cousin, no matter what I said, he would believe it. With his words, Aunt would be more convinced that Enyang was her savior. Later, Aunt would introduce Gu Shishu to a madam of a noble family who was much better than me. And the most important thing is that even if Enyang gets married in the future, it has nothing to do with me. After all, it is Aunt who will introduce her. Aunt is injured, so I can show my filial piety. Of course, third cousin is not interested in marriage. His marriage has been delayed again and again. I will definitely make Aunt agree to marry third cousin. This can be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. When Gu Shishu took action, she had thought about this clearly. But now she was really flustered. She kept clenching the handkerchief in her hand and subconsciously paid attention to the conversation between Wenxiqi and Anyang. Anyang should be more experienced than me, so it is impossible for her to give herself away, right? Excuse me, why did you go up the mountain with ginseng? I heard that it is 100-year-old ginseng? Wenxiqi asked impolitely. His eyes fell on Gu Shishu's hand. She was used to it. Maybe she didn't care about it very much. Every time she was flustered, she would clench the handkerchief hard. I happened to sell the ginseng to nurse my health. I brought it up the mountain because I wanted to spend some quiet time on the mountain and nurse my health. Anyang lowered her head. Although there was still a smile on her face, it was very bitter. It was obvious that she had something to say. Nurse your health? Why do you need to nurse your health? Wenxiqi raised his eyebrows. Anyang lowered her head more and more. My health is not very good. I need to nurse my health, so speaking of this, Anyang seemed to come to her senses. She raised her head in astonishment, looked at Wenxiqi, and then looked at Madam of the Prime Minister lying on the bed. She stretched out her fingers and suddenly understood. Does Lord Wen suspect me of something? I don't know Madam of the Prime Minister. How could I plot against her? What's more, I can't go to Madam of the Prime Minister. Speaking of this, her face had turned pale with anger. She bowed sideways to Madam of the Prime Minister lying on the bed. Madam Wen, if you really think so, I will go back first. It was just a coincidence. If Lord Wen doesn't like this coincidence, it is my fault. Didn't like this coincidence? In other words, Wenxiqi didn't want her to save Madam of the Prime Minister by coincidence? Her words were a little guilty. Lying in bed, Madam of the Prime Minister was in poor health. Hearing her words, she flew into a rage. She sat up with the help of an old maid, patted the edge of the bed with one hand, and said angrily, Shichi, what do you mean? Do you think she shouldn't have saved me? Or do you think I shouldn't have survived the disaster? Thinking that she had almost lost her life, Madame Wen was overcome with sorrow and tears immediately fell. Shichi, I thought you were in such a hurry to go up the mountain because you were concerned about my health, but it turns out that you suspected someone else's intention in saving me. What intention could someone have after saving me? Could it be that Yang harmed me? Speaking of this, the more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. She suddenly burst into tears. Wenxiqi didn't expect things to turn out like this. He glanced coldly at Gu Shimei and Yang's faces. He was sure that there was something fishy going on, but he couldn't ignore his mother's crying. His mother couldn't stand any torment now. If something really happened to her, he would regret it very much. Mother, don't cry. I just want to make it clear. I don't really want to suspect anyone. Wenxiqi comforted Madam of the Prime Minister and pulled at his lapel. After going up the mountain covered with dust, his lapel was still wet. Mother, if I didn't care about you, why would I rush up the mountain on horseback? I was afraid that father would be worried, so I sent a message to him. Seeing that his attitude had softened, Madam of the Prime Minister felt a little better. She didn't really want to make a fuss. She knew that her son also cared about her. Looking at his tired face, he was still wearing the official uniform of the Ministry of Justice. Knowing that he came directly from the Ministry of Justice after getting the news, she felt sorry for him again. Among her 3 sons, this one was the most promising and the one she liked the most. Son, I really owe Yang this time. It's not an exaggeration to say that she saved my life. You can't interrogate her like you did in the Ministry of Justice. You should thank her properly. Madam of the Prime Minister wiped away her tears and stopped making a fuss. Mother, don't worry. I will definitely thank her properly. Wenxiqi agreed without hesitation with a deep look in his eyes. Gu Shishu and Yang, very good. Chapter 12:23. Dr. Chiu had always been the busiest doctor, from Prime Minister Wen's mansion to Marquis Xing's mansion, then to Prince Zhou's mansion, and then to the Imperial Palace. However, he didn't live a good life in the Imperial Palace. On the one hand, there were too many rules in the Imperial Palace, which made him very unfree. On the other hand, the imperial physicians in the Imperial Palace didn't like him very much. The imperial physicians formed their own system, and the new ones who entered the Imperial Palace would also become Imperial physicians. Only Dr. Chiu was different. He was sent in by Prince Zhou to treat the Empress. Unlike those Imperial physicians who entered the Imperial Palace in the past, those Imperial physicians would inevitably be included in the Imperial physician system after entering the Imperial Palace, no matter what the reason was. When Prince Zhou sent him to the Imperial Palace, he had said that he would only send him for a period of time, which meant that Dr. Chiu would eventually go back. Originally, it was only a few days, so the Imperial physicians in the Imperial Palace didn't care. But now this period of time was infinitely extended because of the Empress. This made the Imperial physicians more and more displeased with Dr. Chiu. No matter how they looked at him, Dr. Chiu seemed to be an outsider, and his behavior made people feel that he was sneaky. Before, the Empress protected him, so no one dared to say anything. Now the Empress couldn't even protect herself, so how could she protect him? Dr. Chiu's life in the Imperial Palace became difficult. Not only did the Imperial physicians dislike him, but even the S wanted to deal with him because of the Empress. Dr. Chiu was very smart. He made a mistake and was sent back to Prince Zhou's mansion after being beaten. Since the matter had been settled, it was unwise to stay in the Imperial Palace. Compared with Prince Zhou's mansion, it was the safest place for him. A small beating could not kill him. Dr. Chiu saw it very clearly. The Empress couldn't protect herself, so she was very low-key now. Even if something happened to him, she wouldn't help him. It was better to save himself. Moreover, he was very successful in saving himself. A small palace sedan chair sent him out of the Imperial Palace. Dr. Chiu, who was half lying in the sedan chair, was very proud and in a good mood, although it was inconvenient for him to turn around. The sedan chair suddenly stopped, and Dr. Chiu was slightly surprised. Shouldn't they have arrived at Prince Zhou's mansion at this time? He frowned and wanted to speak. Suddenly, the sedan chair door was opened, and the light from outside came in, making him unable to see the face of the person clearly for a moment. He only felt that it was a man, and then everything went black, and he was covered in a black bag. Who are you? Dr. Chiu was horrified and struggled desperately. The sack was very big, and the person who came was also very agile. After putting the sack on Dr. Chiu, the person pulled it down and wrapped Dr. Chiu's whole body. Then, Dr. Chiu was scolded heavily on his head and Dr. Chiu fainted. When he woke up again, Dr. Chiu moved his hands and feet with difficulty. His hands and feet were tied up and he could not move at all. There were still injuries on his body, and the pain became more and more intense. He gritted his teeth and looked around. It was an ordinary house and he couldn't tell what this place was. Who wanted to deal with him? Inside or outside the palace? In fact, there were only a few people who dared to fight with Prince of Zhou's men, but he couldn't afford to offend any of them. Dr. Chiu was very flustered. Are you awake? The voice came from behind a screen in front of him. The sound of footsteps came from behind the screen. A guard walked out and sized him up with a cold gaze. This kind of coldness was not only on the guard's face. Dr. Chiu had experienced that this kind of coldness came from the evil spirit. Such a strong evil spirit was by no means an ordinary guard. It could be said that such a guard was not ordinary. At least he didn't see such a guard around Prince of Zhou. A guard with such a strong evil spirit. Who are you? Dr. Chiu shrank and his face turned pale with fear. Tell me who you are. The guard looked down at him and asked. I'm an imperial physician in the palace. No, I'm a doctor sent to the palace by Prince of Zhou to treat the Empress. Dr. Chiu didn't understand the meaning of the guard's question and replied tremblingly. Are you Prince Yu's man? The guard raised the corner of his mouth sarcastically and sneered. He took out a soft whip from his waist and lashed it on the ground. No, I'm Prince of Zhou's man. Dr. Chiu was very afraid, but he didn't dare to say anything. Some words could get him killed. Although he had killed a few people, it didn't mean that he wasn't afraid of death. In fact, he was more afraid of death than anyone else, so he wanted to find a powerful backer. Otherwise, he would be beaten to death if he killed someone. I heard that you are related to the cousin Miss of Prime Minister Wen's mansion? Was it the cousin Miss of Prime Minister Wen's mansion who recommended you to Marquis Xing's mansion? The guard ignored his words and stood with his back to the light, with an ambiguous look. Yes. Dr. Chiu stammered. He was not afraid of investigation. Did you kill Miss Wang of Marquis Xing's mansion? Who asked you to kill her? The guard changed the topic again, which seemed to have nothing to do with the previous one. Dr. Chiu's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Did someone still dig up Wang Yishu's death? Wang Xingxue was also dead. How could someone dig up Wang Yishu's death? Well, Dr. Chiu said, if you want to lie, you can break one of your hands. This whip has killed a lot of people. Today, you can use it to smash your hand. The guard said slowly. There was even a smile on his face, but the smile made people feel cold from the bottom of their hearts. Yes, it was Madame Jiang's order. Dr. Chiu gritted his teeth and confessed Madame Jiang. Anyway, Madame Jiang was dead now, so it didn't matter if the matter was dug up again. What's the use of Madame Jiang asking someone to kill Wang Yishu? The guard played with the whip in his hand and said, she wants to frame Princess Chen and let her bear the responsibility for killing Miss Wang. Since he had said it, it was not so difficult to say the next words. Even if this matter was found out, so what? The victim and the murderer were dead. He was just a doctor. Even if he made a small mistake, Prince Zhou could protect him. Moreover, he had to tell the truth at this time. A wise man submits to facts. Now that he was not dead, it was better to be obedient. However, when he asked this question, Dr. Chiu was a little relieved. I heard that you have been studying some strange medicine many years ago. When did you develop the medicine of fake death? The guard suddenly changed the topic. The topic changed too fast. When Dr. Chiu was a little relieved, he subconsciously felt that the next question would not be too difficult, so he hurriedly said, more than 10 years ago. Speaking of this, he stopped in astonishment, and Dr. Chiu widened his eyes in fear. You developed it more than 10 years ago, right? The guard suddenly squatted down and looked at him with a pair of cold eyes, making him feel as if he were being stared at by a viper. No, what medicine of fake death? I don't understand what you are talking about. Dr. Chiu's eyes widened, and he unconsciously struggled to explain. You don't understand? The guard suddenly smiled and stood up. The whip in her hand fell fiercely on his back, causing him to let out a blood-curdling scream and almost pass out. Wherever the whip passed, the pain became so intense that he could only scream for a moment, and then he couldn't even make a sound. He was in extreme pain. Tell me what happened to Xiao Yanru. Why is she still alive and secretly meeting Marquis Xing? The guard said with a sneer and raised the whip in his hand high again, as if he didn't want him to say more and just wanted to find a random topic to kill him once. The whip fell heavily. It was another piercing pain. Dr. Chiu was in so much pain that he could hardly think, but his mind was very clear. What did it mean? Did it mean that he saw Xiao Yanru appear? Did it mean that all the facts were there? Of course, he had said that Xiao Jing would never appear again. Xiao Jing had promised him and said that Xiao Jing had never appeared in front of the public for so many years. He thought that Xiao Jing was trustworthy, so he helped Xiao Yanru. Unexpectedly, he was discovered as soon as he left the Imperial Palace. Xiao Yanru was really a woman who never cried when she succeeded, but was good at spoiling things. He shouldn't have helped her at the beginning. This woman had a pair of ambitious eyes and was fickle. At first glance, he could tell that she was not a good person. I'll tell you. After the sharp pain subsided a little, Dr. Chiu endured the sharp pain and said loudly. Since they all knew it, there was no need for him to hide it. He had said everything he could in order to stall for time and get reinforcements. What happened next was much simpler. Lord Chiu told him everything about Xiao Yanru in detail and said that someone in the Imperial Palace helped Xiao Yanru, but he didn't know this person. It should be a powerful person. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to find him without letting him know and help Xiao Yanru plan. He wrote several pieces of paper about the part that Dr. Chiu knew. When he finished, Dr. Chiu had lost his strength in pain and fainted. The guard took the paper and looked at it with satisfaction. Then he asked someone to untie Dr. Chiu and give him some food, but he couldn't be killed for the time being. What Dr. Chiu told appeared on Chu Liuchen's desk. Looking at the statement on the paper, Chu Liuchen slightly raised the corner of his eyes with a faint smile. The fake death medicine? It was a plan developed by Mingqiu Nun and Qi Ju together. It turned out to be the fake death medicine. Xiao Yinru was really not simple. She could escape after entering the Imperial Palace. Of course, Xiao Yinru alone was not enough. There were also Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou, and even Prince Cheng and another group of people. His slender fingers gently tapped on the table a few times, and the handsome Mao's face was cold and fierce. Did you ask him about what happened more than a decade ago? Master, he didn't say it. He just said that he had just developed it and he didn't know it more than a decade ago. Besides, he didn't go to the capital city at that time. Xiao Xuanzi reported, if I ask him again, he will faint. I'll ask him again after he recovers for a period of time. Eat and drink well and recover as soon as possible. Then I'll ask him again after he recovers. If he can't recover, I'll beat him again after he recovers. Chu Yuchen said coldly. A person who had been beaten all the time might be able to endure it. But if he recovered, he would be beaten again and again. How many people could bear it? He meant that he wouldn't stop until he got the answer. Xiao Xuanzi secretly lit a candle for Dr. Qiu. He could only say that Dr. Qiu was too unlucky to provoke his master. Chapter 12:24. After visiting the Empress Dowager, Chu Luchen took Xiao Wanru to the back of the mountain. The scenery at the back of the mountain was good. In particular, there were not many people in the purple bamboo forest, so not everyone could come here. Chu Luchen held Xiao Wanru's hand with his big hand, and their wide sleeves fell down. Even so, Xiao Wanru felt quite embarrassed. With a little shyness in her watery eyes, she looked even more watery. Xiao Xuanzi and Yu Jie stayed far away from them so as not to disturb their peace. The sound of falling leaves under their feet was not loud, but it was peaceful. After a long while, Xiao Wanru said softly, Gu Shishu made such a scene today, and Madam of the Prime Minister is more and more obedient to her now. I should be her favorite now. Chu Luchen nodded and said with a bit of sarcasm, Madam of the Prime Minister really trusts her niece very much. Did she trust her niece too much? Xiao Wanru inexplicably remembered that she was driven out. Because her lips were naturally red, people said that she put on makeup in the morning hall and did not abide by the rules of a woman. Madam of the Prime Minister actually listened to such words. It could be seen that Madam of the Prime Minister was so obedient to Gu Shishu. What happened in the last life seemed to be getting farther and farther away from her. Since she married Chu Luchen, she felt that everything in the past was a dream and not so real. Madam of the Prime Minister will eventually suffer losses because of this niece, Xiao Wanru said lightly. Since she trusts this niece so much, help her. Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and said, he had always been ruthless to irrelevant people, but since Madam of the Prime Minister was so brainless that she fell in love with a daughter who dealt with shuozhua, there was no need to sympathize with her. Huaguang Temple is a royal temple, so many noble madams will come here. Madam of the Prime Minister fell in love with shuozhua because of her injury, so she should live here for a period of time. Xiao Wanru vaguely guessed the plan of her mother and Gu Shishu. With the fact that Yi Yang had saved Madam of Prime Minister and Gu Shishu's flattering words, Yi Yang could easily get Madam of Prime Minister's approval. Every time she met a guest, it was also a very simple thing to bring Yi Yang out. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice. She deliberately slowed down just to let Gu Shishu stop her. At this time, her mother would definitely not want to see her, for fear that she would find out something. Coincidentally, he was just trying his best and had no intention of interfering with the left Prime Minister's wife's matter. Madam of the left Prime Minister was not a good judge of character. In her previous life, she knew that she had nowhere to go, but she still drove her out. If Chu Luchen had not helped her, she would have died. Without the protection of Prime Minister Wen's residence, it would be extremely easy for Jiang Shi and Xiao Seru to take his life. Now she could stand by and watch without directly intervening, which could be considered as repaying Wen Shiqi's warm protection for her. Prince Qin, Princess Qin. Wen Shiqi, who suddenly appeared on the side of the road, was stunned when he saw the two of them. He was also very surprised to meet them here, but he immediately stepped forward and saluted them. At ease, Your Excellency. Chu Luchun waved his hand and said with a faint smile, "How is your mother's injury?" "Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. My mother's injury is not bad, and she should be fine." When Shichi said, glancing at Xiao Wanru beside him, "Princess Qin, can I have a word with you?" "Please go ahead." Although Xiao Wanru was surprised that when Shichi wanted to talk to Chu Luchun, she still nodded with a smile and took Yu Jie to the side path. "What's the matter, Your Excellency?" Chu Luchun raised his eyebrows and looked at Wen Shichi with interest. "I want to talk to you about something, Your Highness," Wen Shichi said. "Please go ahead." Chu Luchun nodded indifferently and continued to walk forward, followed by Wen Shichi. "Your Highness, do you know about Marquis Xing's mistress?" Wen Shichi didn't hide it and said bluntly, "I heard that the mistress is the daughter of a former Imperial censor who was lost in the capital city. She is now in my mother's place." Chu Luchun squinted at him and said, "I heard from Zhuozhua that your mother was saved by someone. It turns out that the mistress is Marquis Xing's mistress. It's not a big deal that I happened to meet her." "Your Highness, this woman is not simple, and Marquis Xing's behavior is not simple either," Wen Shichi said slowly. He spoke at a moderate speed, showing that he was in a calm mood. "Is there anything unusual about what he said in the Ministry of Justice?" Chu Luchun smiled slightly and said lazily, "Marquis Xing made a statement in the Ministry of Justice, and it was normal without any mistake. When the former Duke Xing was killed, several people saw him in the capital city, so it was impossible for him to have anything to do with the death of the heir of Duke Xing. As for the death of Infanta Qinghua, it was because she was in poor spirits. She had just given birth to the heir of Duke Xing and died because she was too worried. It was said that and great elder princess went to see her in person, so he couldn't be blamed." When Shichi said, "Everything has nothing to do with him, so he is innocent?" Chu Luchun raised his eyebrows. "That's right, so I let him go back to Marquis Xing's mansion first," When Shichi said. "The higher-ups couldn't find anything unusual about this matter because it happened too long ago." Xiao Jing said that he didn't leave the capital city, and when he asked others, they also said that he should be in the capital city. "Your Excellency, do you think he is innocent?" Chu Luchun suddenly smiled and turned his eyes. There was an inexplicable emotion in his deep eyes, which made people unable to tell whether he was happy or angry at this time. When Shichi didn't answer immediately this time. After a long while, he stepped on a fallen leaf and said, "I think he lied." But Chu Luchun stopped and looked at Wen Shichi in surprise. His words were too perfect, as if he had prepared it for a long time. As for the matter about the Jiang family, he was actually the one who benefited from it. There is another flaw, which is the Anyang. This woman is not simple, and she also knows martial arts. Martial arts? Chu Luchun didn't know about this, so he raised his eyebrows. "Yes, martial arts. My mother had an accident today, and it was said that she was a little far away from her. Even if my mother's servant girls and old maids reacted slowly, she couldn't have been so fast. She has been Xiao Jing's mistress for so many years and rarely appeared in front of others. How could she be so sensitive? Also, my mother said that no one was very close to her at that time. My mother suddenly tripped and fell. If someone didn't deliberately trip her, someone who knows martial arts threw something over and tripped her." When Shichi made a detailed analysis. This matter was really strange. He specially asked his mother and always felt that Gu Shishu did it to his mother. However, Gu Shishu was innocent and was far away from his mother at that time. Gu Shishu was just a weak girl in the boudoir, so it was impossible for her to do it and hurt his mother from so far away. But if it wasn't her, who was it? The Anyang was the most suspicious person. Wen Shichi was not the Prime Minister's wife. He was smart, decisive, and sensitive, so it was easy for him to see the changes in the matter. In order to confirm it, he later asked Gu Shishu. Gu Shishu was very flustered. The more he asked, the more flustered she became. In the end, she simply cried. She only said that she was also frightened at that time and couldn't distinguish anything. The more he asked, the more she cried. She was even more unwilling to talk about this matter and obviously had a guilty conscience. After listening to Wen Shichi's detailed analysis, Chu Luchen glanced at him with a faint smile and said, "You just watched your mother be cheated?" She didn't know the right person. She had to be taught a lesson. When Shichi's face turned cold and he slightly lowered his head, as if she was not his biological mother, Chu Luchen was very surprised by his expression. He thought that when Shichi would definitely tell his mother immediately and expose Gu Shishu's disguise. "I heard that the Prime Minister's wife likes you, her youngest son." Chu Luchen asked curiously. She loved her youngest son the most, but it seemed that he didn't care much about his biological mother being cheated. It was really surprising. Mother spoils Gu Shishu too much. When Shichi was silent for a moment, somewhere in his heart was fiercely pulled, which made him feel very upset. In the dream, she was chased out with a pale face. She was spurned by so many people. Weak, pathetic, and pitiful, she was right in front of his morning hall. He seemed to have seen it, but he could only watch helplessly as she was humiliated and chased away. He was powerless. That feeling of deep hatred was a heart-wrenching pain. He could forgive his mother's preference for his second brother and Gu Shishu, but he couldn't allow the woman he cared about to suffer so much grievance and hurt after his death. A trace of deepness flashed across Wen Ye's eyes. Some things were done, no matter what happened in the previous life or in this life. The Ministry of Justice will pay attention to the matter of Marquis Xing. If there is any progress, I will send it to Prince Chen's mansion. When Shichi said, looking at Chu Luchen without avoiding his eyes. This was no longer a simple message, but more like he was taking a side. Yes, he was taking a side. He did not hesitate to take Chu Liuchen's side, unlike his previous insignificant performance on Chu Liuyue's side. Chu Luchen suddenly smiled. His handsome lips curved up, which made people feel that he was as handsome as jade and unparalleled in the world. After smiling for a while, he raised his handsome eyes and then put down his smiling face. A cold, murderous look immediately appeared on his face. "Third young Master Wen, do you know what you are doing?" "I know." Sensing Chu Liuchen's sharp gaze, Wen Shichi nodded and said solemnly. Of course he knew what he was doing. He had to take Prince Chen's side. Only in this way could he protect her and prevent her from being as miserable and sad as in the previous life. Indeed, compared with her, Chu Luchen was more suitable and more suitable. "Don't worry, Your Highness. Since I have expressed my feelings here, I will follow Your Highness's lead." Wen Shichi said without hesitation. In fact, he had been looking for an opportunity to tell Prince Chen about this. During this period of observation, he could sense some of Prince Chen's small movements. He could see clearly what kind of person Prince Chen in front of him was. Only he could protect her, and he was sincerely protecting her. In this case, what else did he want? In the previous life, he owed her. In this life, he only hoped that she would be safe and happy. Chapter 12:25. Nyang didn't expect that it would be so smooth that she couldn't believe it. The news that Madam of the Prime Minister fell down somehow spread out. After hearing the news, the madams from aristocratic families who happened to go up the mountain to offer incense came to visit Madam of the Prime Minister one by one. The two prime ministers in the court, whether they were Prime Minister Wen or Prime Minister Zhang, were the people they wanted to curry favor with. In the past, when they were in the Prime Minister's mansion, they might not have the chance to visit them. At this time, it was a coincidence. Everyone wanted to take the opportunity of visiting Madam of the Prime Minister to show their faces in front of Madam of the Prime Minister. It might be a great fortune for their husbands or sons. The incense room where Madam of the Prime Minister stayed was crowded and very lively. Many madams who had only met Madam of the Prime Minister once also came. Originally, they thought that Madam of the Prime Minister would definitely not meet them. Unexpectedly, Madam of the Prime Minister was very easy to talk to this time and would meet anyone who came. Because of this, they saw Gu Shishu, the cousin of the Prime Minister's mansion, and Lu Anyang, the daughter of the former censor who was left in the capital city. In fact, the matter of Anyang had already been spread in private. Some said that she was the mistress of Marquis Xing and the daughter of the former censor. Everyone was in the mood of watching a show and did not take it seriously. The daughter of the former censor? If there was really such a daughter who was the mistress of Marquis Xing, Even if Censor Lu died, he would also be ashamed, not to mention that Censor Lu was still alive. He had been demoted before, and he might have a chance to come back. If he came back and knew about this, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. Unexpectedly, this woman really dared to come to the front of the stage. Seeing that she was very proud in front of Madam of the Prime Minister introduced her to visit the sick one by one. The madams were very sensible and greeted her with smiles and were very kind. Almost without Madam of the Prime Minister saying anything, they accepted Lu Nyang. Almost overnight, the madams who offered incense and stayed overnight in Huaguang Temple all knew about her. And they all thought highly of her. With the support of Madam of the Prime Minister, Marquis Xing had no legal wife now. In addition, she had an extraordinary background. With these points, she would be the future Madam of Marquis Xing. Thinking of this, everyone pretended not to know that being a mistress was a stain on one's reputation. They smiled and talked. Many people gave her a greeting gift. Each of them pulled Yang and were extremely intimate. Every time this happened, the Prime Minister's wife would smile and express her satisfaction with Yang. She would also say that it was all thanks to Yang's help. Otherwise, she would really be in trouble this time. Gu Shishu said, "Aunt Lu," again, and her behavior was very intimate. People who didn't know would think that they were mother and daughter. Nyang was very satisfied to be able to enter the circle of the madams of the aristocratic families so quickly. After staying on the mountain for 2 days, she accompanied the left Prime Minister's wife down the mountain. They were so close that they looked like a family. When the carriage of Prime Minister Wen's mansion left Huaguang Temple, Xiao Wanru was standing on a hill. Seeing that Anyang got on Madame Wen's carriage, she raised the corners of her mouth silently. She was not surprised by what she saw now. Anyang had been looking for an opportunity to enter Marquis Xing's mansion. The favor of Madam of the Prime Minister allowed her to appear in front of the world justifiably, and also allowed her identity as the daughter of the Imperial censor to be recognized, which was no longer just a rumor. Since it wasn't a rumor, it must be true. Have they arrived in the capital city? Xiao Wanru slightly parted her cherry lips and asked very calmly. The wind blew up the hem of her skirt, and the wide hem of her skirt reflected her waist. Her waist became more and more slender, and it was easy to hold it in one hand. She was standing in a pavilion on the top of a small hill. This pavilion was directly facing the mountain gate, so she could see it quite clearly. They will arrive in the capital city soon. Qing stood beside her and reported. She knew who her master was asking about. After arriving in the capital city, arrange for them to stay in the yard outside. Don't go out unless necessary, Xiao Wanru ordered. I understand. Qing knew Xiao Wanru's plan, so she simply answered. Then she followed Xiao Wanru to look down the mountain. The carriages of Madam of the Prime Minister had begun to go down the mountain one by one. The carriage in front belonged to Madam of the Prime Minister, as well as Gu Shishu and Yang. The two of them had just entered Madam of the Prime Minister's carriage together. It seemed that they were accompanying Madam of the Prime Minister to relieve her boredom. Your Highness, Madam of the Prime Minister doesn't look stupid. Qing said in confusion. Madam of the Prime Minister seemed to be very good at talking, and she was also the Prime Minister's wife. How could she be so easily tricked? She trusts Gu Shishu very much. She believes in everything Gu Shishu does and says. She thinks that she raised Gu Shishu, so she knows her best. She is much better than other women outside. Xiao Wanru raised the corner of her mouth sarcastically. In fact, it was not difficult to guess Madam of the Prime Minister's mind. She loved Gu Shishu very much. If she just loved Gu Shishu excessively, it would be fine. However, because of a few words from Xiao Wanru, Madam of the Prime Minister could even neglect other people's lives. Madam of the Prime Minister was just like that. However, it had nothing to do with her. She withdrew her eyes coldly, sat down in the pavilion again, picked up the tea that Qing had just made, and took a sip. The faint fragrance of the tea wafted. Help her spread the word. It's good for the whole capital city to know the current identity of Xiao Jing's mistress. Xiao Wanru said lightly. Inyang had an identity and got acquainted with Madam of the Prime Minister. Madam of the Prime Minister seemed to like Yang very much. Naturally, someone would go up to flatter her and talk about the relationship between Yang and Xiao Jing. Madam of the Jiang was gone. Even if it had only been a few days, it didn't matter. How could there be a lack of flatterers in the world? I'll ask someone to spread the news about Yang later. I'll especially spread the news that she saved Madam of the Prime Minister and won her favor. Qing understood. In this respect, she was much smarter than other servant girls. However, there was still one thing that she didn't understand very well. Your Highness, do you really plan to let her marry into Marquis Xing's mansion? Why not? Xiao Wanru said with a smile, and her eyes became distant in the fragrance of the tea. Why not? Of course. Especially at this time, Madam of the Jiang's funeral would be held tomorrow. When Madam of the Jiang died, she was dirty and unclear. She had been grounded and lost her reputation. Later, she made such a big joke in front of Marquis Xing's mansion and almost became the joke of the whole capital city. Xiao Jing was very angry. He buried her hastily. The funeral would be held tomorrow and he planned to bury her the day after tomorrow. Even an ordinary family would put her in place for 3 days. Only Madam of the Marquis Xing, who used to be arrogant, ended up in such a miserable state. However, she had brought this upon herself. Xiao Jing planned her death, and her son also participated in it. Although her son didn't do it himself, he was helping Marquis Xing's mansion to clean up the consequences of this matter. When he visited Madam of the Jiang, he made Madam of the Jiang say that her angry words were nonsense. He also asked Madam of the Jiang's mansion to comfort her and take good care of her. In fact, it was all an illusion. Xiao Hua and didn't know what kind of place the Ministry of Justice was. How could Xiao Jing not know? It was very common for a guest to be eavesdropped by the personnel of the Ministry of Justice in the room next door. Madam of the Jiang's mansion was killed by Xiao Jing and Xiao Hua. One made a move, while the other did nothing to save her and even pushed her. When Xiao Hua went to see Madam of the Jiang's mansion, he had already known that Madam of the Jiang's mansion would definitely die. For the sake of an unwarranted power, Xiao Hua didn't save her biological mother and even pushed her. Xiao Hua's cruelty could be seen clearly. In the last life, Xiao Hua was the one who stayed out of it. Let her talk to Nanny Yu. There is no female master in the Marquis's mansion, so we can't let Xiao Jing stay there for 3 years. Third aunt will make trouble tomorrow. Zhao Xiran's status is not high enough. The Marquis's mansion is in a mess. Xiao Wanru said with an increasingly cold and indifferent smile. Chaos. She wanted to make Marquis Xing's mansion in chaos from top to bottom. Those people thought that she didn't want to leave Marquis Xing's mansion. The current heir was Hao, so she would definitely not be ruthless. Then she would let those people know that there could be no construction without destruction. She didn't care whether Marquis Xing's mansion was destroyed or not. It was enough as long as Hao and her grandmother were safe in this life. As for Yang, they thought that Madam of the Prime Minister supported her outside and old Madam supported her. In addition, Marquis Xing's mansion was suffering from internal and external troubles. At this time, even if Xiao Jing went out of line, it was okay to let Yang marry into the mansion early, as long as no one objected. Xiao Yanru wanted to go back to Marquis Xing's mansion, while Xiao Hua and Xiao Jing wanted Xiao Yanru to change her appearance and gain glory again. Everyone was greedy, including Yang. The decline of Marquis Xing's mansion was right in front of them. Let's go back. It's time to go down the mountain after packing up. Xiao Wanru stood up and walked out slowly. She had said goodbye to the Empress Dowager before. Tomorrow was the funeral of Marquis Xing's mansion and the day when Third Madam would make a scene in the morning hall. No matter from which aspect, she had to be present. Qing nodded, and they went down the hill one after another. When they returned to the courtyard, Yu Jie and a group of servants had already packed up. They surrounded Xiao Wanru and walked to the gate of Huaguang Temple. The carriage of Prince Chen's mansion had been waiting there for a long time. Seeing them coming out, it hurriedly pulled the carriage over. After getting in the carriage, several carriages went down the mountain. When they arrived at Prince Chen's mansion, the chief butler had been waiting there with a smile. Seeing Xiao Wenru get out of the carriage, he hurriedly stepped forward with a smile and saluted, "Greetings, Your Highness." "Where is His Highness?" Xiao Wenru asked casually. "His Highness is in the study. He asked you to go to the study first." "But what's the matter?" Xiao Wenru was stunned for a moment and asked. In the past, when she came back from outside, Chu Luchen would come back to the courtyard to see her if he missed her. "Nothing. It's just that concubine Lan sent someone over," the chief butler said with a smile. He seemed to be in a good mood, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Xiao Wenru nodded and went to Chu Liuchen's outer study with Yu Jie, but she was a little confused. In the past, concubine Lan sent someone over, but she couldn't reach Chu Luchen. Why did Chu Luchen receive her now? At the door of the outer study, the chief butler left after seeing Xiao Wenru being taken in by Xiao Xuanzi. Looking at the half-open partition window of the study, his smile slowly faded and he sighed helplessly. In fact, concubine Lan also had a hard life. He didn't dare to say this in front of his master, so he could only keep it in his heart. He only hoped that with the princess, his master would not be so extreme. Chapter 12:26. What's this? Xiao Wenru looked at the thing in front of her in astonishment and didn't recognize it for a moment. It was a small box, and the thing in the box was even smaller. It occupied half of the box. If it weren't for the clear dent on the bottom of the box, she really couldn't tell that half of the thing was missing. What's this? Xiao Wenru looked sideways but still didn't recognize it. She turned to Chu Luchen, who was standing by the window. Chu Luchen stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. Xiao Wenru couldn't see his face clearly, but she inexplicably felt that his emotions were very restrained. After thinking for a while, she took 2 steps forward, put her arms around his waist from behind, and put her little face on his back. "If you don't want it, give it back." He probably didn't want concubine Lan's things. "She knew that I would want it." Chu Liuchen's voice was a little gloomy. Even if he didn't turn around, she could imagine the coldness on his face. "Do you have to?" Xiao Wenru asked softly. "This is the tiger token. The former emperor's tiger token." Chu Luchen raised the corners of his thin lips and sneered. "But only half of it." "Half of the tiger token?" Xiao Wenru didn't understand, but it didn't prevent her from knowing the meaning of the tiger token. "Why only half of it? She only has half of it in her hand," Chu Luchen said. He reached out one hand and gently held Xiao Wenru's little hand in front of him. His hand was very cold, but hers was very warm. Xiao Wenru also held his hand with one hand and gently stroked his hand with her fingers, as if to warm him up, but she didn't ask any more questions. That was the unbearable thing he was most unwilling to talk about in his heart. Since he didn't say it, she didn't ask. Chu Luchen slowly calmed down. Although his eyes were still cold, his face was no longer cold. He turned around, held Xiao Wenru in his arms, looked down at Xiao Wenru's black hair, and said slowly, "The former emperor's tiger token can mobilize part of the military power. It was left by the former emperor when he killed people. But later, there was no war, so he put it away and never used it again." "Does it mean that the tiger talisman is useless?" Xiao Wenru didn't understand this kind of thing and asked subconsciously. Chu Luchen touched her hair from time to time and said, "It's useful, but I haven't used it for many years. But if I take it out, it's still useful, but it's not as good as it used to be. If I add an Imperial edict now, it'll be more powerful." A tiger talisman and an Imperial edict. The meaning of this was enough to make one shiver. Xiao Wenru couldn't help shivering and subconsciously hugged Chu Luchen tightly. "Where's the other half?" "The other half was hidden by the late emperor. I don't know where it is. I haven't seen it for so many years." Chu Luchen said calmly. "What does concubine Lan mean now?" Xiao Wenru blinked her long eyelashes a few times and didn't quite understand what it meant. Half a piece meant that it was useless. What did concubine Lan mean by sending it here? "When concubine Lan sent it here, she said it was for you." Chu Luchen lowered his head and said ambiguously. "What? Give it to me? Why are you giving it to me?" Xiao Wenru was shocked. She pushed Chu Luchen away and asked anxiously, But then she suddenly understood and said, "It should be for you." Maybe she was afraid that you wouldn't want it, so she gave it to you in my name. No, it's for you. Chu Luchun shook his head and said with certainty. Why is it for me? Xiao Wanru really didn't understand this time. In her opinion, concubine Lan was just afraid that Chu Luchun wouldn't accept it. Chu Luchun refused to accept it, so he took the opportunity to give her a gift and gave it to her. It's a pair of tiger talismans. This one was originally in the hands of a woman, Chu Luchun said. A pair of tiger talismans. This one was originally in the hands of the woman. Chu Luchun said. Xiao Wanru pursed her lips and understood. Do you want to give it back now? Whatever you say. Chu Liuchun's eyes were a little gentle, no longer as gloomy as before. His handsome eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face and looked at her quietly with an unclear look. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and looked up at Chu Liuchun's face. Suddenly she smiled, walked to the table, put the box in her hand and said, "Since it's a gift from concubine Lan, I'll accept it. I can't go against concubine Lan's will." Chu Luchun was not surprised by what she did. He said with a smile on his face, "Since it's yours, just accept it. Just come back and have a good rest. You have to go to Marquis Xing's mansion tomorrow. It's almost time for lunch. I'll have lunch here before I leave." Xiao Wanru took Chu Liuchun's hand and said softly. There was a trace of softness and even a trace of embarrassment in her light smile. "Don't you have anything for me to eat here?" "Of course not. I've prepared what you want to eat." Chu Luchun smiled. This time, it was not just a gentle and calm smile. The smile went straight to the bottom of his eyes and the corners of his mouth were raised high. Xiao Xuanzi, who was at the door, breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly ordered the table to be served. The lunch had been delivered, but Xiao Xuanzi really did not dare to send it in when he saw the prince's expression. Fortunately, the princess came back and the prince calmed down again. Everything was fine. That was great. The lunch was very light but very sumptuous. There were some dishes that Xiao Wanru liked, so there was no need to order dishes at all. Xiao Wanru had no oil in the mountains these days. Although the food at home was light, there was a lot of meat, so she felt comfortable. Finally, she drank a small bowl of soup and put down the bowl. Chu Luchun ate one more bowl than her. He looked thin, but after recovering from his illness, he got better and ate much more than before. After Xiao Wanru finished eating, she watched Chu Luchun eat with a smile. When he put down the bowl, she gave him another bowl of soup. Chu Luchun took it and also ate it. Xiao Xuanzi, who was watching from the side, smiled more and more. Sure enough, as long as the princess was here, the worst mood of his master would disappear. How could Xiao Xuanzi not know his master's temper? If the princess was not here, the things sent by concubine Lan would definitely make his master think of something bad again. At that time, no one knew how angry he would be. Fortunately, he had the princess. After lunch, the two of them held hands and ate separately. After that, Xiao Wanru returned to her courtyard with the brocade box. After returning to the courtyard and taking a nap for a while, Xiao Wanru got up. She was going to Marquis Xing's mansion tomorrow, so there were still some things to prepare. The next day, Xiao Wanru didn't go early, but when she arrived at Marquis Xing's mansion, she found that the whole mansion was deserted. Even at the gate, there was only a small piece of white cloth hanging on the gate, which meant that there was a funeral in the mansion. The gate was half open, and the servants at the gate were all lazy. It was impossible to tell that this was a family that was busy with a funeral. Seeing the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion coming over, the gatekeeper hurriedly stepped forward to salute and led the carriage to the back. When they arrived at the place where the carriage was parked, there were only a few scattered carriages, which didn't seem to belong to a noble family. They should be the relatives of the Xiao family. Worship. The place where the Jiang family's coffin was parked was very remote. Only after going around the corner could they see it. Only Zhao Shiran was in the morning hall, and even Xiao Hua was not there. There were several other servant girls and old maids in white clothes. Even if the dignified supervisor and old maid in the mansion were gone, they should still be dignified. Xiao Wanru calmly stepped forward to light an incense stick and then left. As for the Jiang family, she could come today for the sake of Marquis Xing's mansion. Fifth sister, go inside and have a seat. Zhao Shiran should have been waiting for her here. After she finished lighting the incense stick, he said slowly. Her face looked very calm and her eyes were not red. Although she was a little tired, she was basically calm. She was dressed in coarse white clothes, which made her look listless and haggard. "Where is my eldest brother?" Xiao Wanru looked around and asked. "He is inside. My grandmother is with my father, and some elders are also there," Zhao Shiran said with a pale face. Xiao Wanru frowned and asked, "First sister-in-law, what happened?" Zhao Shiran wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. After a pause, he said, "Fifth sister, you'd better go and have a look by yourself." Xiao Wanru nodded, and they went to the backyard together. The main room of Old Madam's Chuntang courtyard was very lively. Old Madam, who had suffered a stroke, was also there, half lying on the couch in the middle. Xiao Jinghe and Third Master Xiao were sitting on each side. Third Madam was sitting beside Third Master Xiao, and Xiao Hua, and was sitting on Xiao Jing's side. As for Xiao Jie, Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kaling, they didn't see any of them. Next, there were several elders of the Xiao family sitting on both sides. Xiao Wanru was a little familiar with these elders. When she returned to the Xiao family, these elders should have been there. The death of the Jiang family was a big event in the Xiao family, so it was normal for them to appear here. Seeing Xiao Wanru come in, everyone present, including Xiao Jing, bowed to her. At present, Xiao Wanru was the highest. After saying, "No need to stand on ceremony," Xiao Wanru sat down in the middle. There had been a vacant seat in the middle. Marquis Xing's mansion also guessed that Prince Chen would not come, so there was a vacant seat. The atmosphere in the room was very dull. After sitting down, Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jing and asked softly, "Second uncle, what were you discussing before?" There were so many people here, but only Zhao Shiran was waiting in the morning hall of the Jiang family. Moreover, he was waiting for her here, so there must be something important. When she entered the yard just now, she heard the voices in the room from a distance, but now no one said anything. "Your grandmother just made a suggestion." Xiao Jing sighed and said helplessly. Tuan Tuan's smiling face was no longer as pleasing as it used to be. Instead, it was a little gloomy. What else can Grandma say now? Xiao Wanru looked at Old Madam lying on the bed in surprise and raised her watery eyes slightly. "Your Highness, although Old Madam can't move, she can still say some simple things. I have heard some simple things from Old Madam these days, so I can understand them." Nanny Yu stepped forward and explained with a smile. "Then let's talk about what Grandmother said that actually alarmed so many clan elders." Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows and looked at the several elders sitting aside. When they entered the door just now, they should be the elders who argued vigorously. It seemed that Old Madam's proposal was really not so satisfactory. In the past, no one dared to doubt Old Madam's words and actions. Chapter 12:27. Old Madam means that she wants Madame Lu to marry into the mansion so that she can manage the family affairs. The mansion is in a mess, and it can't be so messy. After all, First Grandma is a junior. It's not convenient for her to manage some things, and she can't manage them all. Nanny Yu got Xiao Jing's hint. She was perturbed and said in a low voice, "Madame Lu." Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows. She is the daughter of an imperial censor. She has been with the Marquis for so many years. Madame Dowager means that she has worked hard even if she doesn't make any contributions. Moreover, there is a miss in the Marquis's mansion. We can't let the miss of the Marquis's mansion live outside without knowing why. Nanny Yu explained. Madame Lu was Lu Yi's mother? Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. As expected, Xiao Jing and Xiao Yinru couldn't keep calm. Madame of Jiang had just stopped the coffin, and now they were going to let An Yang enter the door. Xiao Wanru wondered if Madame of Jiang would climb out of the coffin in anger and settle accounts with her children and Xiao Jing in the middle of the night if she knew it. She's just a concubine's daughter. She can't become the Marquis's second wife. Moreover, Madame Jiang's body hasn't even turned cold yet. How can we let a newcomer marry into the family? One of the clan elders said unhappily. The others nodded repeatedly. It was obvious that they all felt that the situation was not good. At this time, even a concubine was not suitable, let alone a concubine. The so-called madam was naturally not a concubine's concubine. After all, Madame Jiang had just died. Xiao Jing sighed and said, "Lu's identity is not ordinary, and she has been with us for so long. Madam of the Prime Minister thinks highly of her. A few days ago, she saved Madam of the Prime Minister's life in Huaguang Temple. It's my fault that Marquis Xing's mansion has become like this. I feel ashamed to face the Xiao family. If it goes on like this, there may be no place for our Xiao family in the capital city in a few years." He meant to talk about the future of the Xiao family, as if the Xiao family would have no hope if Anyang was not allowed to marry into the Xiao family. Xiao Wanru glanced at Xiao Hu. Since he entered the room, he had been sitting here quietly with his head lowered. She could not see the expression on his face, and he did not respond to Xiao Jing's words at all. Save the Prime Minister's wife's life? The eyes of the elders lit up. They looked at each other and immediately understood the meaning in each other's eyes. Many aristocratic families knew about this. The Xiao clan knew that the two prime ministers, Prime Minister Wen and Prime Minister Zhang, were important ministers in the imperial court. It was a great thing to have connections with these two prime ministers. The decline of Marquis Xing's mansion had become a foregone conclusion. The most important thing for the Xiao clan was Marquis Xing's mansion, which was related to the survival of the Xiao clan. Even if the elders were unwilling, they could not say anything. One by one, they nodded their heads and reluctantly expressed their agreement. However, they also repeatedly suggested that even if Lady Zhao entered the Fu as a secondary wife, they could not do anything about etiquette at this time. At most, they could only invite a few family members to a meal and not a single outsider could be invited. If these words were to spread out, it would not be good to say but not good to hear. It was better to let others think that it was better to marry a concubine, but to openly marry a co-wife would make people sick. At that time, they would quietly open the genealogy book and record Lady Lu and her daughter into the genealogy book. As for what would happen in the future, Xiao Jing did not say it, nor did the elders. Since the matter had been settled, the elders decided to leave when they saw that it was almost time. Originally, these elders did not intend to come. The Jiang clan's reputation was not good, and they had brought this upon themselves. No one was willing to come at this time. If Xiao Jing had not specifically ordered them to leave, they would not have. If Xiao Jing had not specially ordered them to come over, they would not be willing to worship the Jiang family. There was a slight smile on old Madame's crooked face. It seemed that she was in a good mood. The third Madame suddenly stood up with the help of a servant girl, staggered a few steps, and knelt in front of the good old Madame. "Old Madame, the second sister-in-law's body is not cold yet, but the mansion actually wants to marry a new wife. I can't accept it. How can a daughter from another family marry into our Marquis Xing's mansion? She said that she is the daughter of the former censor, but who knows whether she is a fake." The third Madame was furious. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Third Master Xiao did not expect this. After being stunned for a moment, he became furious and stood up to pull the third Madame. This matter was second brother's business, and it had little to do with the third branch. "Old Madame, if you are biased towards this cheap woman from nowhere and want her to marry into the mansion, then we, the third branch, are willing to separate from the mansion and live alone," the third Madame said with difficulty. At a glance, it was obvious that she was sick and weak. She was panting, not knowing whether she was angry or tired. Third Master Xiao did not dare to touch her. How could he touch her in such a state? He just rubbed his hands anxiously and said in a low voice, "What nonsense are you talking about? This is second brother's business, and it has nothing to do with us. You are not in good health, so you better go to rest early." The third Madame turned to third Master Xiao and smiled sadly. "It has nothing to do with us. If such a woman marries into the mansion, what about our daughters in the future? They are not married yet, right? How can they get married? Second sister-in-law's body is not cold yet, and second uncle wants to bring this woman into the mansion. I heard that it was because of this woman that second aunt begged for death. At this time, aren't you afraid that second sister-in-law will jump out of the coffin?" Xiao Jing's two daughters, whether Xiao Yenru or Xiao Jie, were at least married now. Next were Xiao Zaihuan and Xiao Keiling. Thinking that his two daughters did not have a suitable marriage recently, third Master Xiao was also very annoyed. Second uncle, can't you marry a decent woman into the mansion? Third Master Xiao, who had been indifferent to the marriage of his two daughters, couldn't help but say angrily at this time when he saw the third madam's angry look. Old madam, who was lying on the couch, patted the edge of the bed hard. At this time, if she could move, she would have slapped the third madam twice and asked her to kneel outside. Since when could a small third madam like her make decisions in the mansion? Third brother, what nonsense are you talking about? Xiao Jing said sternly with a straight face. No, second brother, I didn't mean. Third Master Xiao, who had always been afraid of his brother, immediately lowered his voice after being reprimanded by Xiao Jing. Marquis, our third branch wants to separate. The third madam gritted her teeth and insisted. Unlike third Master Xiao, she was no longer afraid of Xiao Jing at this time even though she used to be afraid of him. Hey, don't talk nonsense. Third Master Xiao looked at her and then at Xiao Jing, whose face was as dark as the sea, and stamped his feet anxiously. Third Master, our third branch has always been an extra in the Marquis's mansion. If there is anything, they will not discuss it with us. Most of the time, they will inform us. If it weren't for the elders here today, I'm afraid that the two of us wouldn't even know that the woman had entered the mansion. Haven't our two daughters suffered enough in the past? Now they still have to bow to such a woman? If this is really the case, even if I die, I will take my daughters away. If I die, you can also bring other women into the mansion before my bones turn cold. The third madam's face was full of tears, but her meaning was very clear. She would separate from the family today no matter what. The elders looked at each other and were speechless for a moment. They did not expect that things would go to such a point. It was the first time that Xiao Jing had been slapped in the face by his useless sister-in-law. She kept mentioning other women. He was so angry that his face turned blue. He slammed his hand on the table heavily and looked at Third Master Xiao gloomily. Third brother, what do you say? Third Master Xiao was a reckless man. He had never cared about the third madam's words in the past. But now, when he saw the third madam's appearance, saw her bone-thin hand squeezing the handkerchief in her hand hard, saw a faint trace of blood in the handkerchief, and then thought of the matter of an outsider marrying into the mansion, he did not know where he got the courage for a moment. Second brother, let's separate from the family. He really could not live on like this. His wife was about to die of illness, and his daughters did not even have a marriage. The worse the reputation of the mansion was, the worse it would be for their marriage. For so many years, the third branch of the family was just a decoration in Marquis Xing's mansion. Third Master Xiao did not care about it before, but now he felt a little wronged. Second brother brought all kinds of women into the fu, no matter if they smelled good or smelled bad. He did this for his daughter who was raised outside, but he also had daughters, and two daughters at that. Third brother, do you know what you are talking about? Xiao Jing flew into a rage, and the blue veins on his forehead stood out. His younger brother, who had always been obedient to him, actually stabbed him at this time. He really could not bear it. Without the protection of the Marquis's mansion in the future, how can the marriage of my two nieces be good? Well, Third Master Xiao hesitated again. He did take a big part in the marriage of his two daughters, and seeing his second brother being so angry, he felt guilty and could not help turning his head to look at the third madam. Thank you, second uncle. If it's possible, I hope second uncle can separate us. Our daughters don't want to marry rich and powerful people. We can only marry clean and innocent people. We can't let them be scolded by others before they even get married. How will they face others in the future? Even if they get married, how will they be able to raise their heads in the future? The third madam said with difficulty. Although her voice was low, her words were very powerful. After saying that, she kowtowed to old madam again and said, Old madam, please grant my wish. It seemed that she was determined to separate from the family. Although old madam could not move her mouth or her hands, she knew in her heart. She was angry and hateful, but she could only make strange sounds and slap her hands and feet. She glared at the third madam angrily and salivated. Nanny Yu took 2 steps forward, wiped old madam's saliva with a handkerchief, and then carefully stepped aside. I don't agree. Xiao Jing said angrily and glared at the third madam. I agree. A cold voice sounded almost at the same time. It penetrated Xiao Jing's voice and appeared in everyone's ears. It was Xiao Wanru's voice. Her words attracted everyone's attention. Even Xiao Huan, who had been silent, raised his head and looked at Xiao Wanru's tense little face with an unknown look in his eyes. What do you mean, Princess Qin? Xiao Jing's face became increasingly ugly. Chapter 12:28. The clan elders looked at each other, not saying a word. If she were an ordinary junior, they would definitely reprimand her without Xiao Jing saying anything. However, the one in front of them was Princess Qin now, and no one dared to offend her. Second uncle, third aunt is in poor health, so we can't go against her wishes. It's really inappropriate for Zhao to marry into our family at this time. If it weren't for, actually, I also want Marquis Xing's mansion to have a better reputation. Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jing's gloomy face, smiled slightly and said lightly. The third branch could separate, but the first branch and the second branch couldn't. The title of Marquis Xing's mansion was still in Xiao Jing's hands, but the position of heir of duke was in the hands of the first branch, which meant that the first branch and the second branch couldn't be separated. Princess Qin, do you mean that the first branch also wants to separate? Xiao Jing said in a sharp voice. Qing Er's face darkened. She knew that Marquis Xing was reprimanding her master. Xiao Wanru waved her hand gently, motioning for her not to act rashly. She raised her watery eyes slightly and said quietly, Second uncle, I just said that I agree with third aunt's proposal to separate, but you asked me why the first branch wants to separate? Could it be that second uncle thinks that us siblings are an eyesore? Her words were extremely sharp. Xiao Wanru's eyes were like pools of water, and her face turned cold. There were only her and her brother in the first branch, so she could indeed speak on behalf of Xiao Yuanhao. Xiao Jing calmed down and suppressed the anger in his heart. He had thought that it was just a formality, but now he couldn't control his anger for a while. Princess Qin, I was wrong. Xiao Jing said. Xiao Wanru's face softened. What do you mean, second uncle? Are you going to force third aunt to die if you don't separate? Second uncle, we, the third branch, must separate. We can't afford to lose our reputation. Your second branch has already gotten married, so there are only a few people in the third branch left. However, our third branch hasn't got engaged. But I die like this, what will happen to their marriage? Their marriage? Third madam cried and coughed while crying. She covered her chest with force and coughed so hard that she could hardly breathe. The maids on both sides hurriedly helped her to pat her chest. It took a long time for her to recover. Second uncle, thank you, second uncle. When third master Xiao saw that the third madam was in such a state, but she was still thinking about her children, he felt sad for a moment. The children of the third branch were indeed not engaged. If something happened to the third madam, she would be delayed for another 3 years. The 2 daughters would not be able to bear the responsibility first. If they continued to be delayed, would the 2 daughters still marry? With that in mind, he also knelt down with a thud. Mother, second brother, please let our third branch separate. If second brother can do this for 1 daughter, I can do it too. I have 2 daughters. He was talking about Xiao Jing's concubine. The Madam of Jiang had just died, but his second brother insisted on bringing a concubine into the family. Third Master Xiao thought that the most important reason was the concubine. It was said that the concubine was not young and it was a good time for her to get married. It would be bad if they continued to delay it. The reason why his second brother insisted on bringing the concubine into the mansion despite the fact that the Madam of Jiang's coffin was still outside must be this reason. His second brother was not a man who would faint at the sight of a woman. It was impossible for him to be so ruthless this time for the concubine. Third Master Xiao invisibly knew the truth. Xiao Yanru faked her death and left the Imperial Palace. This was her only chance to return to Marquis Xing's mansion. How could she let go of this opportunity? Even if the lineal daughter of Marquis Xing's mansion had fallen, at least it sounded better than a concubine and had infinite possibilities in the future. Mother, second uncle, please help us. The third madam held the maid's hand and said with difficulty, her voice getting lower and lower. Old madam, who was lying on the bed, moved her hands and feet desperately with hatred in her eyes. She wished she could kill the third madam right now, but she could do nothing but struggle to make a sound to remind others of their anger. However, her resentment in vain did not attract the attention of the people present. Everyone's eyes fell on Third Master Xiao and the third madam. What do you think, elders? Xiao Wanru looked up at the stunned elders and asked softly. Psst. The elders were also very helpless. Things changed so fast that they did not expect the third madam to be so resolute. It's better to think about it in the long run. An elder stroked his long beard and said, delaying. When can we think about it in the long run? Even if we can afford to wait, third aunt's current situation. Second uncle can't wait, let alone third aunt's current situation. Xiao Wanru stared at the elder who spoke with her watery eyes as cold as ice. The elder's hands trembled and he lowered his head. He couldn't answer her. The third madam was in a very bad situation. If she was not careful, she might really die of anger on the spot. If something happened, who could bear the responsibility? A concubine of the second branch was fine, but she couldn't wait any longer. Since the third madam was in such a state, how could they let her wait any longer? It was not up to them to decide whether to die of anger or not. Second brother, I beg you, please separate from the family. If you don't, Third Master Xiao was so anxious that sweat broke out on his forehead. He knew that the third madam was in a bad situation at first glance, and her whole body softened. Third Master Xiao took the third madam from the maid and said in a loud voice, Second brother's daughter is a daughter, and my daughter is also a daughter. She is just a concubine. Do you really want to force your sister-in-law to death for a concubine? If so, all of us in the third branch might as well die here, lest your two nieces can't get married in the past. Third Master Xiao was usually a hooligan, so he didn't pay much attention to the third madam. But now he was furious, and it seemed that the third madam couldn't hold on any longer. Xiao Jing was so angry that he gritted his teeth. In the past, his useless brother didn't dare to speak to him like this, but now he dared to provoke him and say such words. Second uncle, let go of third uncle and third aunt. Xiao Wanru said coldly. Others were juniors and didn't dare to speak, but she was different. With her identity, even if she said something, no one could do anything to her. Okay, split from the family and separate the third branch. Xiao Jing's words were almost forced out of his teeth. He couldn't let others say that he had forced his sister-in-law to death because of the concubine. The third madam was not the madam of the Jiang family, and she had a good reputation. Although she was not a powerful figure in Marquis Xing's mansion for so many years, old madam didn't take her seriously. But she had always been good outside the mansion. If something really happened, Xiao Wanru sitting here would not let him get away, not to mention that third Master Xiao was a hooligan and might really make a scene. Xiao Jing took a deep breath and suppressed the sweetness in his throat. He had to divide this family no matter what. Split it. Thank you, second uncle. The third madam had come to make a scene. Hearing Xiao Jing's words, she softened and fainted in third Master Xiao's arms. Third Master Xiao was so anxious that his face changed dramatically. He immediately sent someone to invite a doctor. Fortunately, the third madam also had a doctor, so the doctor came soon. Xiao Jing didn't care about his sister-in-law's situation and just said with a cold face, Third brother, do you really want to separate from the family? After that, you will just be an ordinary family and no longer be a disciple of Marquis Xing's mansion? Don't worry, second brother. I know. Thank you, second brother. Third Master Xiao just wanted to separate from the family now. He didn't want it to end up like this, so he could only grit his teeth and beg for separation. He had always been very afraid of Xiao Jing. At this time, he was not afraid and refused to give in. At this point, it was useless for Xiao Jing to say anything. The elders and Xiao Wanru of the first branch were here. Xiao Jing calmed down and divided the things of the third branch with third master Xiao. Old Madam was also so angry that she fainted. Zhao Shiran accompanied her into the inner room and invited a doctor to see her. Xiao Wanru couldn't leave at this time. She represented the first branch now. This time, the third branch would be divided. If they wanted to divide it, they should divide it together. However, because of the particularity of the first branch and the second branch, and because it was the third branch who proposed the separation, there was no objection. The third branch took the initiative to ask for it because Xiao Jing wanted to marry a daughter from outside the family, and the elders were listening. Xiao Jing couldn't really treat the third branch badly. As for Xiao Wanru, she was very generous and said that she would give more to the third branch. The third madam was in poor health, and third master Xiao couldn't marry her. Besides, Xiao Taihuan and Xiao Kaling were not married, so they would have a dowry in the future. The third branch was given a lot of benefits. Xiao Jing saw these benefits, but he couldn't say anything. He was angry and annoyed. Xiao Wanru had agreed, and she took the initiative to make it up to the third branch. As the second brother, of course, he couldn't be stingy, which made him increasingly feel the benefits of letting Nyang marry into the family. He Nyang had married into the family now, it would be impossible for her to let him suffer such a big loss. The second branch still lacked an elder in charge of the inner court. As a man, he couldn't argue with his niece here. Xiaohua was also a man, so it was inconvenient for him to say anything. Although Zhao Shiran was the eldest sister-in-law, his identity as an equal was nothing compared to Princess Chen's identity. Xiao Jing was aggrieved and annoyed, so he separated the third branch. After learning that they were going to separate, Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kaling were very calm and asked people to take care of the things in their courtyards. In the future, the third branch would not live in Marquis Xing's mansion and was given a large house with a good location on the street and a large area. This was proposed by Xiao Wanru to be compensated by Marquis Xing's mansion to the third branch. Originally, this house was not intended to be given to the third branch. Xiao Wanru proposed it, so Xiao Jing had to agree. Marquis Xing's mansion was in a mess. The servants of the third branch were busy moving things out, and some people went there to clean up the house. For a moment, it didn't look like a funeral, but a lively event, which attracted some people outside the mansion to inquire about the news carefully. Basically, the people who went in and out were the servants of the third branch. The servants of the third branch used to be disdainful in the mansion. At this time, when they heard that the third branch had separated and got a lot of benefits, they were in a very good mood. When they heard someone asked, they spread the news in detail. Chapter 1229. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net there was no pop-up window for free reading. What? Was Marquis Xing's mansion going to separate today? Wasn't it the funeral of the former madam of Marquis Xing? Was it not a funeral but a separation? What? The third madam couldn't stand that Marquis Xing asked a mistress to take charge of the internal affairs of the mansion these days, so she insisted on separating. What was going on? Madame of Jiang had just died, but she asked a mistress to take charge of the internal affairs of the mansion? Marquis Xing's mansion was really improper. No wonder the third branch wanted to separate. If they stayed together, they might do something ridiculous. Hearing the words of the servants of the third branch, many people whispered to each other and pointed at Marquis Xing's mansion. Marquis Xing's way of handling affairs was really improper. No matter how bad Madame of Jiang was, she shouldn't let a mistress take charge of the internal affairs of the mansion at this time. No wonder the third madam wanted to separate. If they didn't separate, they would lose face. Xiao Jing originally wanted to handle the affairs of Yinyang quietly. As long as she was listed in the genealogy and entered the gate of Marquis Xing's mansion, with the support of Madame of the Prime Minister, no one could interfere with his affairs. After all, he didn't hold a formal banquet for the sake of Madame of Jiang. He didn't expect that this matter would become like this. Not only many people knew it, but many people also criticized it. He was so angry that he went directly to the study in the front yard, ignoring Madame of Jiang's funeral. Xiaohua also went to the study and pushed all the affairs to Zhao Shiran. Seeing old madam still struggling on the bed and thinking of the mess in the mansion, Zhao Xiran felt that she was really not enough to handle it alone. When she married into Marquis Xing's mansion, she thought that she could control the whole Marquis Xing's mansion in her hands. On the one hand, she helped her father find something, and on the other hand, she could make Duke Xing's mansion prosper with her own ability. Now, at this time, it was a mess. Everyone pushed the blame to her. Looking at old madam's hateful eyes, she seemed to be the one who broke up the family. Zhao Xiran felt weak all over, but she had to deal with affairs. There were so many things to do inside and outside the mansion, but her father-in-law and Xiaohua didn't care about them and left them all to her. How could she, as a new daughter-in-law, deal with them? At this moment, Zhao Xiran worked hard and regretted marrying into Marquis Xing's mansion. At that time, he actually had a lot of choices. With his hand on the pillar, his vision darkened and his ears filled with the voices of the servants. His body softened and he almost fainted. Great-grandmother, great-grandmother, great-grandmother. After a long while, Zhao Xiran slowly opened his eyes and looked around in a daze. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "I'm fine. Go back to your work." "Great-grandmother, this servant will help you rest for a while." Qiu Yu and Qiu Lian, her dowry maids, were worried and helped her to sit down. "No need, let's go back first," Zhao Xiran said in a low voice. "First, grandma, old madam, what should we do?" Qiu Yu glanced at old madam secretly and asked in a low voice. She could tell that old madam was in a bad condition. She was really afraid that Master Ho and First Young Master would blame First Grandma for everything if something happened to old madam. Zhao Xiran smiled bitterly and lowered her eyes. In order to plot against Duke Xing's mansion, she married into Marquis Xing's mansion, and no one in Duke Xing's mansion treated her sincerely. But now she had to deal with the mess. "Help me to sit on the stool," Zhao Xiran said. She couldn't leave here now. She still had to take charge of the affairs in the mansion. Fortunately, the outside maid was going to marry into the mansion. Zhao Xiran had been very opposed to this outside maid marrying into the mansion before, but now she had no choice. Since they wanted to marry into the mansion, she could just let them in. The reputation of Marquis Xing's mansion was already so bad. Could it be worse? She couldn't clean up the mess in the mansion. Whoever wanted to clean it up could do it. Marquis Xing's mansion couldn't recover. Xiao Wanru left when there was a disturbance in the mansion. The mansion was in such a mess that there was no one who could make decisions. The inner courtyard was in a mess. She didn't intend to help Marquis Xing's mansion. She got in the carriage with her own people and went out of Marquis Xing's mansion to pay respects to Madame Jiang. She also came, and Marquis Xing's mansion couldn't find any fault with her. The storm was blowing. She wanted to see how Marquis Xing's mansion could survive this storm. The carriage was very calm. She took a cup of tea and looked at the tea in the cup with a hint of gloom in her clear eyes. Marquis Xing's mansion killed her parents, so there was no need for them to stay. "Mother, what should we do?" The people of the Ministry of Justice came to ask about it again. In Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, Chu Qing was also very annoyed. The Empress Dowager was still in Huaguang Temple, and not everyone could see her. At present, this matter really couldn't be delayed any longer. An official of the Ministry of Justice, even if he was just a low-ranking official, died in his mother's temple. If no one said anything, the Ministry of Justice would not close the case and send people over from time to time. "Push someone out," Old Princess said with a gloomy face. She knocked the wooden fish in her hand so hard that it almost covered her own words. Pushu. Chu Qing was not surprised by her words. There must be a reason. If the reason was not well explained, he might be implicated. Chu Qing could not bear this responsibility. In the emperor's heart, he was not a nephew. Both he and Chu Luqian were the sons of the former emperor, but there was a huge gap between them. To be able to hide a lowly official in the temple, it was not something that an ordinary person in the mansion could do. "Push a supervisor out." Old Princess gritted her teeth and said, "Tonight, push a supervisor out and say that he committed suicide. Say that someone secretly brought him in that day, and it was this supervisor who did it." "What's the purpose?" Chu Qing asked anxiously. Someone wants to frame you, and then wants to assassinate you. The real purpose is not to assassinate you. The main purpose is to have someone search Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, find the low-ranking official of the Ministry of Justice who died, and frame you. Old Princess put down the wooden fish in her hand heavily and said fiercely. Since the Empress Dowager's way could not work, she would not take this way. It was a good idea. Chu Qing nodded repeatedly. Now he had no choice but to be forced by the Ministry of Justice. The Minister of the Ministry of Justice said that if Chu Qing could not give a suitable explanation, he would take him directly to the Ministry of Justice. Mother, who do you think should frame me? Chu Qing thought for a while and said, there was a cause and effect in this matter. She had to secretly point the finger, otherwise the Ministry of Justice would not take it seriously. It should not have been so late on the day when the low-ranking official died. Because of the death of the Madam of Jiang, the Ministry of Justice left many people here, including the low-ranking official. What if the death of the Madam of Jiang has something to do with him? Old Princess was indeed a person who had experienced 2 dynasties and hid her son in the Yuhui nunnery. At this time, she had already made a decision. Considering what had happened before, the strange behavior of the Ministry of Justice, and some other clues, Old Princess inferred that the low-ranking official might have something to do with the death of the Madam of Jiang. Marquis Xing will definitely benefit from the death of the Madam of Jiang. I heard that Marquis Xing raised a woman and a daughter outside and wanted to marry into Marquis Xing's mansion. At that time, the Madam of Jiang was about to commit suicide in order to frame Marquis Xing. Now that she died at this time, Marquis Xing will benefit from it. Old Princess continued. Chu Qing nodded repeatedly, but he had to hesitate for a moment and said, Mother, Xiao Jing's status is not high enough. With Xiao Jing's status, he could not afford to assassinate her. If Xiao Jing is not high enough, what about Prince Qing behind him? Old Princess sneered. At this time, she had no time to care about the secret contact between Prince Qing and them. In order to save herself, she had to push Prince Qing out. Because she had secret contact with Prince Qing, she knew that the relationship between Xiao Jing and Prince Qing was unusual. She also knew that Xiao Jing was actually on Prince Qing's side. It was inappropriate to push the blame on Xiao Jing, but how about pushing it on Prince Qing? It was just right. Will Prince Qing bite back at us? Chu Qing was still a little worried. Prince Qing was not someone to be trifled with. They knew something about Prince Qing, and Prince Qing also knew something about them. So what? At most, he is making groundless accusations. We didn't say anything. Some news was not released by us, so it has nothing to do with us. Chu Luwei, Chu Liuzhou, and Chu Luchen are all not easy to deal with. Old Princess said coldly with a cold face. But, Mother. Chu Qing was still hesitating. We can't let anyone find out. Let Mo Chui handle it. Isn't Wei Dahai on her side? Even if something happens, it won't be traced back to you. Old Princess said disapprovingly. Mother, Chui is going to marry me. It's not good for her to have an accident at this time, isn't it? Chu Qing was still worried. Mo Chui had been with him in the Yuhui nunnery for so many years, and the 2 of them were childhood sweethearts. Unlike other women, even if Mo Chui was not very beautiful and could not even compare with Xiao Jie, Chu Qing always took her side. If she doesn't do well, there will be someone to replace her. Old Princess sneered indifferently. She is the helper I left for you. It's inevitable for her to help you succeed. Mo Chui's bloodline was also the bloodline of the royal princess of the previous dynasty. But so what? Qing was the most important one, and others didn't matter. Mo Chui was not the only bloodline of the royal princess of the previous dynasty. There were many princesses in the previous dynasty, including Consort Li who fled to the Su kingdom. If Mo Chui couldn't replace her, there would be someone else to replace her. As for Wei Dahai, he was even less important. There were many tricks left by the previous dynasty, and now most of them were in her hands, so Old Princess was very confident. Only when his son ascends to the throne would he be worthy of the title. No one else could do it, no one else. Qing, don't be too sentimental. Chui is good, and I will definitely win her over. But you have to remember that you are the master, and the others are all your subordinates. If there is no other way, even I can be sacrificed. Old princess said earnestly, Emochioi did something wrong before, which led to the looting of that treasury. Until now, we still don't know whose hands it has fallen into and whose suspicion it has aroused. At that time, you shouldered the responsibility alone. If you still protect her wholeheartedly, what will others think? Old princess said with a heavy heart. Chu Qing fell silent and couldn't say anything for a while. It was really Emochioi's mistake, and he lost a lot of people. Chapter 12:30. There was a lot of money left in that treasury. It was at least a quarter of Chu Qing's family fortune. Before this, Wei Dahai's wife was in charge of it. Of course, Emochioi was the main person in charge of it. Who would have thought that this treasury would be robbed? Chu Qing didn't even know who did it. After that, he had sent someone to investigate secretly, but he couldn't find anything, so he could only leave it unsettled. Old princess was furious. She had asked Wei Dahai to prepare some money again to make up for the loss this time. However, Wei Dahai was also a useless man. The shop he liked fell into the hands of Princess Qin in the end, so that he didn't get any benefits. Every time she thought of this matter, old princess couldn't help but vent her anger on Emochioi. The gold bars, gold bracelets, and other gold bricks in the treasury were all solid. Originally, they were very useful for the grand plan to restore the country. Because of this treasury, their hands and feet were tied down a lot, and they also had a lot less money to move around. Old princess was angry at the thought of it, but when Emochioi came over, old princess often greeted her with a smile. She still needed Emochioi, who was the helper she found for her son. Since Emochioi was a helper, old princess certainly wouldn't want her son to do anything to Emochioi. She would do as her mother said. Chu Qing thought for a while and listened to old princess. Mother, how is Xiaojie? Should I go to pick her up? She has been in Marquis Xing's mansion for many days. It's good that she doesn't want to come back, lest she knows what happened in the mansion. Qing, you should know that Xiaojie married into the mansion reluctantly. This time, such a thing happened, so she is the most suspicious one. If she comes back, we have to find a chance to get rid of her. Old princess said unhappily. She hated her son's sentimental look the most. How could Xiaojie, the daughter of a concubine, deserve her son? Mother, should I leave her alone now? Chu Qing subconsciously felt a little reluctant. After all, when Xiaojie was gentle, she could still be lovable. She was more beautiful than Emochioi. Don't worry about her and lead the matter to her. Isn't she back to Marquis Xing's mansion now? Didn't we want to say that Prince Qing set you up? By bringing the matter to Marquis Xing's mansion, we can imply that she also helped you that day. Now she has returned to Marquis Xing's mansion after the accident. Even if you go to pick her up, she doesn't dare to come back. Old princess sneered. She had always been a smart woman. Otherwise, she would not have sneaked into the palace and given birth to Chu Qing in the Yuhui nunnery. How could she have done this without careful planning? If it wasn't for her bad luck, she would have pushed out the former empress at this time and ascended to the position of empress herself. Her son would also be the legitimate son. How could there be anything between Prince Yu and Prince Zhou? On the day when the Madam of Jiang was buried, it was still deserted. Only Xiaohua and led a group of people to bury the Madam of Jiang in the ancestral land of the Xiao clan. They didn't worship along the way. Many people didn't even know that this group of people was from Marquis Xing's mansion, let alone that such a small group of people was from Marquis Xing's mansion. They looked more like a funeral team of an ordinary family. Xiao Jing didn't show up. He secretly went to Prince Cheng and came to the Yun temple where Prince Cheng lived. He was led to Prince Cheng's room. As soon as he entered the room, he saw Prince Cheng sitting there coldly with a sullen look on his face. Standing beside him was Jiyan, master of the Yuyun temple. After looking at Xiao Jing, he lowered his head speechlessly. He didn't say anything either. The atmosphere in the room was very cold. Prince, I pay my respects to Prince. Xiao Jing tried to put on a smiling face. He took 2 steps forward and bowed to Prince Cheng. Prince Cheng's cold eyes fell on him, but he didn't say anything. The man who led the way left, and the atmosphere in the room became more and more solemn. Seeing that there was no sound from upstairs, Xiao Jing secretly looked up and saw Prince Cheng's extremely gloomy face. He couldn't help but be startled. He came at the wrong time today when Prince Cheng was in a bad mood. When Xiao Jing came before, Prince Cheng had been in a good mood. Especially after Xiao Yanru left the Imperial Palace and was sent to Prince Cheng, Prince Cheng almost treated him kindly. "Xiao Jing, are you hiding something from me?" Xiao Jing's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and he hurriedly waved his hand. "Your Highness, how could I hide something from you? My daughter is by your side now. If I am not loyal to you, how can I send my best daughter to you? Moreover, she didn't have any status now. If he hadn't been forced to this extent, Xiao Qing wouldn't have sent his innocent daughter to Prince Cheng in private. Prince Cheng's identity was noble, but his eldest daughter's identity was also extraordinary. Daughter? Don't you have a daughter?" Prince Cheng sneered. The other daughter was just a daughter of a concubine who was living in Commandery Prince Cheng's mansion now. Because she didn't live well in Commandery Prince Cheng's mansion, she came back to the mansion these days. She was really a nobody. Xiao Jing shook his hand and said, he really didn't like Xiao Jie, and had always thought that this daughter of a concubine was useless. Moreover, she had had such a humiliating experience when she entered Commandery Prince Cheng's mansion. Nobody. Prince Cheng twitched the corner of his mouth, and his smile became colder. He picked up a folded book beside him and suddenly threw it at Xiao Jing's face. "Xiao Jing, you're really capable. How could your daughter, who can't be seen in public, make a memorial to me?" Xiao Jing was hit so hard that he took 2 steps back and almost fell. He subconsciously reached out to catch the book, but he failed to catch it and it fell to the ground. He felt a burning pain on his face. His face had suffered a heavy blow just now, and the corner of his mouth might have been smashed and bled. "Your Highness, what is this?" Xiao Jing stammered. Prince Cheng had never treated him like this before, so he could not help feeling flustered and inexplicably guilty. But then he became angry. Did Xiao Jie make trouble again? Xiao Jing thought. "You have eyes and see for yourself." Prince Cheng snapped and pointed to the book that had fallen at Xiao Jing's feet. Xiao Jing picked it up in a panic and read it quickly. The more he read, the more panicked and shocked he became. When he finished reading, he looked up at Prince Cheng anxiously. "How could this be? How could this be?" He held the book with trembling fingers and his face was pale. "Yes, I also want to know why it is like this. You wanted to kill the Jiang family, so my people helped you. Now someone even claimed that the petty official was my man. The one who assassinated the useless Chu Qing was also my man. The reason why the petty official died in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion was that I did it on purpose. A steward of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion died, and your good daughter was said to have secretly helped you, so that the petty official of the Ministry of Justice died in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion." Prince Qing was furious. He gnashed his teeth in anger. He should have been involved in this matter. Originally, it had nothing to do with him, but now he was suspected of drawing fire to himself. Xiao Jie had planned to marry into his Prince Cheng's mansion, but now she had become the evidence for others to impeach him, which proved that he did have this possibility. Whether it was because of love turning into hatred, other reasons, or ulterior motives, it was possible for him to do this kind of thing. Thinking of his imperial brother's rebuke before, Prince Cheng was furious. He was also angry, very angry. It was not only Xiao Jing who had been smashed, but also him. Now there was a dull pain at the back of his head. What made him even more angry was that 2 of his forces had been destroyed last night. This was all the trouble caused by Xiao Jing. "Your Highness," Xiao Jing was so shocked that he couldn't even finish his words. Originally, he wanted to ask Prince Qing for a solution. It would be best if he could deal with Prince Qin. Only by dealing with Prince Qin could he restrain Xiao Wanru. "What else do you have to say?" Prince Qing snapped. "Your Highness, I don't think the officials of the Ministry of Justice can find anything. They won't find out that the Madam of Jiang died in the hands of a low-ranking official." Xiao Jing gritted his teeth and calmed himself down. At this moment, he had no choice but to hold on. They won't find anything? Prince Ching said coldly. Xiao Jing, do you feel too good? Do you know how many people want to accuse you now? That's right. Now you basically don't even have the right to attend the imperial court, so you naturally don't know how others accuse you. Xiao Jing's face turned red. Now he indeed didn't have the right to attend the imperial court. Originally, he was an important minister in the imperial court, but because of 1 and 2 accidents, he had to idle in the mansion now. He couldn't even meet the emperor, so how could he be favored by the emperor, let alone see others accuse him? Jiang Shi's death is in the hands of the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice can't find a case, so they push the blame onto me. I'm not that easy to bully, so I should find a few good friends to help me. I'm also very sad that my wife has died, and my residence is in a mess. Do these people hate me for being good? That's right. I'm not that easy to be bullied, so I should find a few good friends to help me. I'm also very sad that my wife has died, and my residence is in a mess. Thinking that he had been valued by the emperor, but now he had fallen into such a situation, Xiao Jing was also very angry and couldn't help but say angrily. He always felt that he was inexplicably unlucky and didn't know which step he had taken wrong. Almost one wrong step led to another, and now it seemed that it was difficult for him to move forward. The current Marquis Xing's mansion was as inconspicuous as Duke Xing's mansion was in the past. Thinking of this, Xiao Jing felt very aggrieved and angry. Xiao Jing, now it's not up to you to decide. If you don't have the guts, then the whole Marquis Xing's mansion will be ruined. I heard that you took her to Marquis Xing's mansion last night. Today, are you going to put her on the family tree? Prince Cheng curled his lips and said with a sarcastic smile. Your Highness, I'm doing this for you. I can't let others think that the woman beside you is rude. Xiao Jing panicked and his anger immediately disappeared. He hurriedly looked at Prince Cheng and said flatteringly. Prince Cheng didn't answer him, but said ambiguously, I heard that the new woman in your mansion has a good status and has won the favor of Prime Minister Wen. Then you can go to Prime Minister Wen and ask Prime Minister Wen to help you. As long as Prime Minister Wen helps you, he can say that this matter is the private affairs of your mansion and tear Madam of Jiang from you. In that case, you will be fine. When Prince Cheng becomes the emperor, you will get benefits. Chapter 12:31. Xiao Wanru didn't expect to see her mother so soon. However, her mother's identity was different today. She was no longer the concubine of the Imperial censor's daughter. Today was the day to record her daughter's name in the family tree. Only her mother came. Her daughter was now in Marquis Xing's mansion, but she was seriously ill and couldn't even get up. Her mother had to deal with the matter of recording her daughter's name in the family tree. Xiao Wanru didn't expect to see not only the elders but also the solemn madam of the Prime Minister here. She raised the corner of her mouth silently. Beside Madam of the Prime Minister was Gu Shishu. She sat next to Madam of the Prime Minister, looking weak and well-behaved. When she raised her eyes, she looked extremely gentle. If Xiao Wanru had not dealt with her in this life and the previous life, she would probably have been bewitched by her appearance. However, it was unnecessary now. Her identity was enough to make Gu Shishu stay away from her. Seeing Xiao Wanru come in, Madame of the Prime Minister stood up with the help of her servant girl and was about to bow to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and told Yu Jia softly, help Madame of the Prime Minister sit down. Yu Jia answered and helped the servant girl help Madame of the Prime Minister sit down. There were many people in the hall, except for Xiao Wanru. Even Xiao Yuanhao specially asked for leave today. At this time, he sat on Xiao Wanru's lap and his eyes fell lightly on his eldest brother, Xiao Huan, who was sitting opposite him. This eldest brother used to be the one he respected and admired the most, but now there was only a complicated look in his eyes. Madam of the Prime Minister, how is your leg? After sitting down, Xiao Wanru asked Madam of the Prime Minister sitting beside her. Thank you, Princess Jin. I have to thank you for what happened in Huaguang Temple that day. I should have come to thank you early, but it's not convenient for me to do that because my leg is getting old. Madam of the Prime Minister said with a wry smile. When in Huaguang Temple, Xiao Wanru went to see Madam of the Prime Minister once at the beginning. At that time, she didn't see Madam of the Prime Minister in person and was stopped by Gu Shishu, for fear that Gu Shishu would be suspicious when she saw her mother. After that, Xiao Wanru didn't go there again. Now it was the first time that she saw Madam of the Prime Minister since she fell. Madam of the Prime Minister, you are welcome. Xiao Wanru glanced at Madam of the Prime Minister's face with a smile and said with some confusion, Madam of the Prime Minister is here today. What happened today was a family affair of Marquis Xing's mansion. As an outsider, it was not appropriate for Madam of the Prime Minister to come here. Madam Lu saved my life on the mountain. This time she married into Marquis Xing's mansion. Because of Madam Zhang's matter, it is inconvenient for us to welcome the bride with great fanfare. But she can't be without a family member. I will act as her family member and support her, Madam of the Prime Minister said with a smile. Is Prime Minister going to support Lu Enterprises? Xiao Wanru asked indifferently. Actually, it's not any support. I just saw that she was lonely. She used to be the daughter of an aristocratic family, but because she fell to such a state, it's always unsatisfactory. Lady Wen said gently. Are you familiar with her, madam? Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and said seriously. Well, Madam of the Prime Minister was confused by several questions in a row. Thinking of what Prime Minister Wen had told her last night, she felt inexplicably uneasy. She looked sideways at Lu Nyang, who was standing aside with her head down, and said, I'm not very familiar with her. Madam Lu is kind, and her experience is pitiful. Madam of the Prime Minister's words were very vague. But no matter how vague she was, her purpose of coming to the mansion today was very clear. Obviously, she wanted to support Lu Nyang and help her stand up in Marquis Xing's mansion. Xiao Wanru's eyes flashed with a trace of sarcasm. Madam of the Prime Minister had never been a stupid person. However, such a person was unwilling to investigate too much, mainly because of Gu Shishu. She believed whatever Gu Shishu said. She blindly believed in the person she had raised since she was a child, but because of her trust in Gu Shishu, she trampled on other people's daughters at will. On the surface, she just doted on her niece, but in fact, she was so selfish that it made people's hair stand on end. She was unwilling to see Gu Shishu's misery, so she would rather cover it up with more ruthless behavior, and Xiao Wanru could pretend not to see it. As long as it did not harm her interests, she could ignore the pain of others. In the last life, she was driven away in that kind of situation because she wanted to kill her. She was homeless and had such a reputation, and there was no one around to serve her. If not, she could only fall and die in a dirty corner. From this point of view, Madam of the Prime Minister was not only Gu Shishu's accomplice. In this life, she wanted to tear apart Gu Shishu's true colors and let Madam of the Prime Minister see what kind of person the woman she had been protecting was. The third branch also came today. It was the day when Lu Inyang entered the family tree, and it was also the day when their branch officially separated from the family tree. The third madam was too sick to get up. Xiao Tuhuan and Xiao Kaling came by themselves and sat quietly below at this time. Since everyone was here, Madam of the Prime Minister looked at the people around and said with a smile, Princess Qin, since everyone is here, why don't we record Madam Lu's name together? From now on, she will be the Marchioness of Marquis Xing's mansion. Since Madame Jiang was no longer here, and Lu Nyang had entered the mansion as a secondary wife, if Xiao Jing applied for the title of Marchioness after a period of time, the title of Marchioness would naturally fall on Lu Nyang. She is just a secondary wife. Why should she be the Marchioness? Third Master Xiao suddenly rolled his eyes and said unhappily. He was really in a bad mood. He was originally the third master of Marquis Xing's mansion. Although he had gained a lot of benefits now, he had been separated because of this woman. If it were not for this bitch who wanted to marry into the family, Madam would not have worried about her daughter's marriage and wholeheartedly wanted to separate. After returning, Third Madam also analyzed this matter with him. Although Third Master Xiao was a little displeased before, it was just displeasure. Later, he felt extremely angry. Madame Jiang was not a good person, but this woman did not seem to be a good person either. The more Third Master Xiao thought about it, the angrier he became. He was very angry and his words were also very blunt. In front of so many people, Xiao Jing could not bear it anymore. His face darkened and he said sternly, "Third brother, how can you say that? Did I say something wrong? Second brother, you really put in a lot of effort to marry into the family for such a woman. You would rather drive our branch out for her. Today, I don't think she is a stunning beauty. She is just a woman. The servant girls and old maids in the mansion are much better looking than her. Second brother, you really don't have to drive our third branch out for her." Third Master Xiao was angry. He tried his best to criticize Lu and Yang, making her sound like a servant girl and old maids. He also pushed the matter of third madam's separation to Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing was furious. He slammed his hand on the table and said, "How can you say that? Did I want to drive you out?" Xiao Jing was also very angry. He was annoyed because the third branch was going to split up. "Why not? Is it? Second brother, didn't you raise this daughter from your mistress? You actually want to drive my two daughters away for the sake of this daughter from your mistress. Second brother, you are so kind." Third Master Xiao was angry because of third madam's crying, so he vented all his anger on Xiao Jing. In the past, he had always been afraid of Xiao Jing, but he was not stingy. At this time, he was angry, so he did not have so many scruples. Moreover, third madam also asked him to make a scene today to vent his anger. For so many years, the third branch had been weak and had been bullied by the second branch. He had not been able to vent his anger. Now, he did not have so many scruples. Third Master Xiao was here to make trouble today. His words became more and more unpleasant. Xiao Jing was so angry that he wanted to slap his younger brother. However, there were so many people at this time, so it was not convenient for him to do it. "Second brother, are you feeling guilty? Such a woman?" Third Master's eyes fell on Yang and he smacked his lips sarcastically. "Second brother, did you find this woman from a brothel? She said she was the daughter of the censor's mansion. If she was really the daughter of the censor's mansion, how could such a thing happen? Whose daughter could become someone's mistress when she was in trouble? She might as well commit suicide to show her chastity." Several clan elders nodded when they heard this. In fact, they also thought so. A daughter who was in trouble could be anything, but she chose to become someone's mistress. It was really hard to say what would happen to such a woman. It was indeed possible that she fell into a brothel. She was a young lady who had no one around her and had not seen much of the world. It was understandable that she was sold. Could it be that this Yang was really found from a brothel? Thinking of this, several clan elders looked at each other and felt that it was better to wait and see. Although they had received Xiao Jing's order before, if they really found a woman from a brothel to be the madam of the Xiao family in charge of Marquis Xing's mansion, how would the other daughters of the Xiao family have the face to marry in the future? Every family had one or two daughters and granddaughters. Even if it was not for themselves, they had to make plans for their daughters and granddaughters. "If you talk nonsense again, get out of here." Xiao Jing was angry and his face was livid. "Second brother, you are really angry. It seems that you are really guilty." Master San looked at Xiao Jing provocatively. He had already thrown caution to the wind and was determined to make Xiao Jing suffer. When he thought about how Xiao Jing had caused his own daughter to become a mistress of a side branch because of a mistress, he couldn't suppress his anger no matter what. Even if Xiao Jing beat him today, he would say these words. Xiao Jing stood up with a cold look in his eyes. He was so angry that he really wanted to beat him. "Second brother, what do you mean? Do you want to beat your own brother after becoming a bitch from a brothel?" Third Master stood up, jumped on his feet and said angrily. His reaction was even stronger than Xiao Jing's. Seeing that the situation was not good, the clan elders hurriedly came over to persuade them and pulled them back to sit down again. Looking at the mess, Madam of the Prime Minister frowned. No wonder Shishu and Yang begged her to come here. It was obvious that Marquis Xing's mansion could not treat Yang well. Madam of the Prime Minister's words were so harsh, which was really annoying. "Princess Chen." She glanced over and saw Xiao Wenru sitting aside and said with a smile, "What's the matter?" Xiao Wenru lowered her head and tidied up her cuffs. After hearing her words, she raised her watery eyes, which were quiet and gentle, as if her mood was not affected by the noise just now. Madam of the Prime Minister felt inexplicably depressed. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.